The numerous attacks by President Trump on the Canadian economy, but not just the economy, on our sovereignty and our very identity, I think have really mobilized Canadians. And I think they saw in Prime Minister Carney someone who has experience on the world stage, someone who has experience with the economy, with finance, who has managed crisis, versus Pierre Poilievre, who's never done anything else than work on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. And they felt he was the right person for what's coming ahead and the difficult times we have ahead of us.
We appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Back to you, Catherine.
Vanessa Lee in Montreal. And Rosie, worth noting, Stephen Guilbeault's riding, it was Gilles Ducep's old riding. It's gone Bloc in the past. It went NDP. Even in 2015, Hélène Laverdière kept that riding.
That's right.
Right now, though, Stephen Guilbeault, about 46% of the vote. Still early numbers, though.
Okay. And you can see there at the bottom of your screen, we have still not made a call about what kind of government Mark Carney will be leading as the 24th Prime Minister. 162 seats leading and elected for the Liberals, 138 for the Conservatives, 24 for the Bloc, 10 leading or elected for, I think they're just leading, but maybe leading and elected for the NDP. You need 12 to form official party status. The Greens, oh, look, they just popped up. It seems like every time I mention them, they just appear. Leading and elected in 1. Remember that the number that the Liberals are still hoping to get to tonight is 172. That would give them a majority government and, of course, the ability, the mandate to implement their agenda much, much easier than if they're going to have to work with another party. But what we're seeing tonight is really the story of what this election has been. Largely a two-party race and the collapse of the Bloc and the NDP's vote right now. I want to talk maybe a little bit about popular vote and whether it matters here. I'm just looking at our dashboard. The Liberals are at 44.7%, the Conservatives at 40.6%. And I would just note that these numbers are so big, right? They are so big compared to what you would normally see in an election. 2015, for instance, Justin Trudeau won his majority with 39.47% of the popular vote. That is, I guess, just because we're in this two-party race. Is that how I should read that, Chantal?
Yeah, you should also wait to have the full score.
Yes, of course.
What you're getting is a lot of those Alberta Conservative votes that are kind of
pushing theirs up,
raising the numbers for the Conservatives. But having said that, yes, it is both numbers are way too high for the kind, and that's why when you look at the seats and the possibility of a majority government, it's really hard to have a minority government if you do not have a strong third-party presence. And at this point, yes, the Bloc looks like it's going to get 23, 24 seats, but still, we're used to parliaments where minority rule means many parties that have an official party status. Yes. And at this point, that's not where we're going tonight. So I'm curious to see how the night unfolds. Yeah. I notice there are still loads of places where the vote is barely being counted.
Yes, there are probably 6 places where, no, 24 places where it has barely been counted. Worth remembering here that 6 of the last 8 federal elections have produced minority governments, right? The last majority government we had, of course, was Liberal in 2015.
And with 4 parties with official party status, we look like we're going down to 3. I don't really believe there are loads of New Democrat votes hidden in those uncounted votes.
No, we might get to 4. Does that concern anyone that there is fewer, less representation of parties inside the House of Commons in terms of what that means for democracy, Andrew?
I don't think it's a good thing or bad thing on its own. I mean, again, you get into the issue of how representative is the popular vote in that regard. How well represented is it in terms of the number of seats? Yeah. But ultimately, the electorate is going to decide whether they want to have a multiplicity of parties or maybe in the present circumstances. That's the question is this a one-off or does this represent a greater degree of change? We've seen the NDP written off before they came back. We've seen the Liberals written off before.
The Bloc too, yeah.
We've seen the Bloc. Yeah. So these are enduring brands and the wheel goes full circle and they may come back.
Chantal, then Althea.
On the NDP, they went from no official party status in '93 to decade or two later, I admit, but they still, at some point, they had presence across the country, from Atlantic Canada to BC, including Quebec. So that possibility is still there. Do not assume that a victory for the Liberals tonight is necessarily a Liberal reign for all times.
No.
At some point, the seeds of change will come back, and they might have a better chance to bloom.
Yeah, and Liberals probably shouldn't assume that either. Andrew, and then Althea.
The one thing I think we should be looking for is not just, will they get over the majority, will BC put them over the top, but also how will the Liberals do in Western Canada? One of the things people have been very worried about, some people, is will another Liberal victory cause Westerners, and some Westerners anyway, to give up on Canada? I should note that the numbers coming in BC and Alberta are looking pretty close to what the polling numbers were suggesting, and the polling numbers are saying the Liberals are going to do better, at least in the popular vote in those provinces, better than they have since 1968. So that should hopefully dampen down some of the sort of attempts to portray this as the West being shut out yet again.
We'll see. Last word to you, Althea.
Just a few things. So on that is something that the Liberals were quite concerned about, which is why Mr. Carney spent the last day going to Saskatchewan, going to Alberta to make that case, to hoping to grab seats that they otherwise did not have. I think it's not a thing about democracy if there are no parties, smaller parties in the House. I think it's just, if the balance of power is the Bloc Québécois, it is an opening for the Conservatives to say that it's an illegitimate coalition, much like they did in 2008, which basically means that we will have another election.
But it's not a coalition. It's just one party helps another, right?
Right. But they framed the last supply and confidence agreement as a coalition.
The Bloc isn't about to sign the supply and confidence agreement.
Of course not. They will do issue by issue as they always have, as they have always communicated. But that will not stop the Conservative Party from framing it in that way.
Right.
And I think it will make it very difficult, especially if Mr. Poilievre remains the Conservative leader, because I don't see areas where, although there actually are lots of policy areas where they could get together, I don't see the personalities leading to cooperation in the House of Commons, which basically just means that we will have an election, if it is a minority government and the Bloc has a balance of power, either later this year or next year.
But at that level, if the NDP doesn't even need official party status, it can have a share of the balance of power. Let's agree that we are not yet in those scenarios where the Bloc was going to become the official opposition, and then I was going to hold a knife to the throat of the government. That's not what's happening.
No,
I got to get to David Cochrane here. He's got some stuff from the 905.
Well, look, this is part of the reason why we are where we are. You see the Liberal number actually retreating a little bit. Right now, they are only at 65 seats in Ontario. They are down 10, down 11. And I'm going to look at the Greater Toronto area, and this gives you a sense of where we are right now. So you can see here, a Mississauga is blue, a Brampton is blue, another Brampton is blue. So Peel region has been breached by the Conservatives at this point in time. As we were saying earlier, this is the gate that they need to break down and get closer to the downtown part of Toronto if they're going to make it more of a game at the top line numbers, but certainly in Ontario. And the Liberals are having a little bit of a struggle, at least at this hour of the night. Similar story. There we go. In Vaughan Woodbridge, this is a Conservative-held seat. Thornhill, that's Melissa Landsman. But York Centre, this is another Liberal seat that is blue at the moment. And in Richmond Hill, Aurora, Oak Ridge is a Newmarket, Aurora. York region and Peel region. The Liberals felt pretty good about Peel region. There was some top-line polling suggesting that it was tightening up there as you got towards Election Day. And you are seeing that also up in the York region, which is what the Liberals were the most worried about in their seats in Ontario. But an interesting thing developing as well here in Southwestern Ontario, because look, the Conservative number is 144. Like, that's way up for Pierre Poilievre. Like, that is a big increase in the seats, at least at this point in the night. In the NDP, from Hamilton to London to Windsor right now, those are blue. The conventional wisdom was the collapse of the NDP vote would elect Liberals. But if the Liberals and the NDP both are strong second and third, the Conservatives could come up the middle. That may be what is happening in those areas. And just going back to the GTA, I know this was a concern up in the York region here, was that the NDP vote dropping would help the Liberals run up the score in the downtown Toronto core where they're going to win just by larger margins. But there were not really any NDP vote to be gained in a lot of these 905 outer areas. And that would just, you would have a false sense of how viable you were in those ridings, and you would see Conservatives flip those blue. So the Liberals, still early yet in Ontario, but vote inefficiency not playing in their favor as they are down double-digit seats in a province that pollsters from start to finish had them up double-digit points, right?
But that, again, speaks to what we're talking about around the popular vote and the seat efficiency. Nothing is working as it normally would in an election. That's what's happening, right?
Yes, and you know, Donald Trump obviously disrupted this entire election. I mean, the U.S. president makes about $400,000 U.S. a year. The Liberals should probably book that as a campaign expense, given the way that it's helped them throughout this thing. But, you know, until we get sort of the urban votes in mass number to know exactly how the cities of Canada are going to vote, and the suburbs of Canada are going to finally vote, and of course British Columbia, it's hard to know if they're going to get there. But the vote efficiency that has helped the Liberals win the 2019 federal election and win the 2021 federal election, despite losing the popular vote, at this stage, we're not yet seeing that. Now, they're starting to tick back up. They're in 161 right now. Them and the New Democrats and the Greens, Rosie, that's a majority. You got a bingo right there, but you know, that's a whole lot of work that still needs to be sorted out at this point of the night.
Okay, thank you so much for that, David Cochrane. If you're just tuning in, we have in fact called a Liberal government with Mark Carney as Canada's 24th Prime Minister. He also has been elected for the very first time in his life in the riding of Nepean. We are waiting to see whether it's a minority or a majority, so we're going to go to Adrian now, who's got some results, projected results maybe that will help us get there.
Indeed. So we're looking at a projected elected, the only one that is a flip in Ontario so far. That is Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Again, the only projected elected flip for the Liberals so far in Ontario. Wouldn't it be interesting to talk to Leslie Church? Well, why don't we do that? Let's talk to Eli Glasner, who is in Toronto St. Paul's with Leslie Church. Hello, Eli.
Yeah, Adrian, so we are here in our room crammed with volunteers, and here she is, Leslie Church. Congratulations. I want to know from you that very close loss to Don Stewart back in June, and then to pick up the campaign and start again. How was it different when you started knocking on doors for now a second time?
Well, the difference was really Trump and Mark Carney. Donald Trump, I think, has really set the stakes for this election in a way that stood at the doors, and the change of leadership. Mark Carney came in as a fresh, new, experienced leader for the Liberal Party, and I think people were looking for that too. So that really changed the playing field. And also it was more time to do the outreach that we needed, to hear from people heading into a general election as opposed to a by-election, and I think that was really important. So I'm deeply, deeply grateful for the results tonight.
You lost in the by-election to the Conservative Don Stewart, a small margin of votes of just over 600. Now here you are. How are you feeling this evening?
I feel very good. I feel so grateful for the trust that the community of St. Paul's has put in me. I'm so grateful for the team. We've had just people coming out in this election in ways that I've never seen before, getting involved because of what's at stake. And so I really hope to continue that engagement as we go forward.
I understand people were coming to your campaign manager when he was out putting out signs, something like 4 times the amount of requests for signs. So there really was, this time as opposed to the previous, the by-election, a bit of a uphill battle. A lot of voters talking about Justin Trudeau, not so happy, but a different atmosphere this time.
Well, look, the world has changed, and St. Paul's feels that. And so it's absolutely true. We had people coming in literally off the street, getting involved in their first campaign of their lives, saying this matters, this is going to be the most important election of my lifetime in Canada. And we're proud to be part of a party that is pushing a positive agenda, that wants to build a better future here, and most importantly wants to stand up for Canada in the face of Donald Trump. I mean, that was just an existential threat that really loomed over all of this election.
All right, thank you for making time for us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There you go. go. Leslie Church here at Toronto St. Paul's, very dramatic riding, bit of a bellwether, bit of a wake-up call for the Liberals when the by-election, a big surprise when Dawn Stewart won just a very small margin. But as you're seeing from those results, a very dramatic difference tonight. And certainly when she came downstairs and entered, this celebration, there were loud cheers. And as we were hearing from the organizers when they were out on the street, when they were knocking on doors, the thing they were hearing again and again was Trump and the tariffs, and those concerns has brought this red wave back to St. Paul's. It was a red riding for many, many years with Carolyn Bennett, and it is red now once again.
Okay, all right, Eli Glasner, who was with Leslie Church there. That's the story of Fortress Toronto, but if you go outside...
Donc, oui, mais deux points de base, c'est énorme. Ouais. Quand on réalise, Hélène, qu'ils sont jamais allés plus que 39
oui,
depuis...
mais si votre adversaire fait plus 7...
Non, oui, non, ça je le sais. Ouais. Ça je le sais, j'en suis conscient. Mais le chemin existe s'il se fait élire ce soir. Le chemin existe pour lui d'être chef dans un gouvernement minoritaire, chef du Parti conservateur. Je reviens à ma théorie. Carney est très heureux. Il est sur le Airbus 321. Il laisse tout le monde en l'air, il se promène partout. Négocier avec Trump. On évacue donc le problème avec les Américains. Et là, s'il y a une autre élection, à ce moment-là, Poilievre est sur de bonnes...
Et c'est certain que si on est en situation minoritaire, Poilievre ne va nulle part. À moins qu'il fasse son siège.
C'est ce que je dis.
Mais...
L'avenir dure longtemps, mais moi, je vais en ajouter sur mon collègue ex-sénateur et ministre, c'est que, imaginez le degré de difficulté. Donc, Pierre Poilievre, dans un contexte complètement nouveau, avec un roi fou à Washington, un banquier qui prend la place de Trudeau, et qui lui prend son programme, sur la taxe carbone, sur les baisses d'impôts, et il progresse quand même à 41%. Ouais. C'est quand même quelque chose. Ouais. Il n'a pas démérité de la famille conservatrice, et je pense qu'il a un avenir devant lui.
À 41, je pense qu'objectivement, Michel, vous êtes d'accord, il n'a pas démérité. Là.
Absolument pas. Absolument pas. Puis ce qui est fascinant, c'est que l'Ontario, c'est l'industrie de l'automobile. Et c'est au cœur des négociations avec Trump. Et normalement, les libéraux auraient dû faire des gains beaucoup plus importants. Et là, ce qu'on voit, c'est que c'est les conservateurs qui vont chercher ce vote-là d'une certaine façon. Puis je le regarde pas là, circonscription par circonscription, mais sur le principe même, l'Ontario, c'est important. Et dans ce sens-là, sa stratégie d'aller vers les travailleurs aux dépens du NPD, qui normalement devrait être le parti des travailleurs et des syndicats, ce soir, c'est les conservateurs qui récoltent ce fruit-là. Et juste pour terminer sur ce que Michael dit, je sais que lui, il pense qu'à Noël, c'est terminé. Moi, je pense pas qu'à Noël, c'est terminé, dans le sens qu'il y aura avec Trump, il y aura d'autres conséquences. Et c'est pour ça que c'est important de voir si c'est un gouvernement minoritaire, ça change la donne pour le reste des...
En tout cas, ça ressemble à ça, à ce qu'on a devant les yeux. Là. Je sais pas ce que a pris le conseiller libéral, à moins qu'il y ait des chiffres qu'on comprenne pas. Là.
Mais ce qui est intéressant... excusez.
Sébastien, Grand Toronto.
Oui, Grand Toronto, c'est là que ça s'est joué pour distancer le Parti libéral d'un gouvernement majoritaire au moment où on se parle, parce que les conservateurs ont quand même fait des gains. Regardez, ça, c'est les résultats de ce soir. Donc, vous voyez le bleu qui est ici. Le bleu qui est ici, c'est des circonscriptions où les conservateurs sont en avance comparativement à 2021. Donc, c'est des prises pour le Parti conservateur qui rentrent un peu dans Toronto. Et si on regarde de façon plus générale d'autres sections de l'Ontario, ici aussi, c'était très conservateur avec des grosses circonscriptions. Mais dans l'analyse un peu plus fine, ils ont aussi fait des gains sur les libéraux, notamment ici. Donc, l'Ontario a livré d'une certaine façon pour les conservateurs et n'a pas livré pour les libéraux, ce qui fait en sorte qu'on se retrouve avec les chiffres actuels. Ça se resserre quand même 156-148.
Alors, c'est pour ça que j'ai un grand point d'interrogation avec peut-être le texto du contact de Louis. C'est un texto il y a 3 heures.
Ou il y a du piratage.
Parce que ce qui est intéressant, à l'Ontario, Sébastien parle de Toronto, mais effectivement, le sud-ouest de l'Ontario, c'est important. Ce sont ces circonscriptions qu'on appelle les pivots, celles qui passent du rouge au bleu d'une circonscription à l'autre. Et moi, je regardais des endroits comme Aurora, Cambridge, Flamborough, Milton, Markham, Unionville. Tous ces endroits-là sont en train de basculer bleu. Et ça, c'était là-dessus là-dessus que misaient les libéraux et ça ne s'est pas produit.
Au total, c'est 16 sièges de plus pour les conservateurs en Ontario au moment où on se parle.
C'est vraiment pas ce qu'on prévoyait.
Alors, je vous redonne la parole, mais une petite seconde pour préciser une chose. Il y a actuellement, à 23h10, 33 luttes extrêmement serrées. Et donc, je refais le fil avec le conseiller qui a parlé à notre ami, c'est que si dans les 33 luttes, il y en a 20 qui tombent du côté rouge, ils ont effectivement une possibilité encore de devenir majoritaire. Il y en a 33 là où c'est serré, et c'est arrivé.
Si elles tombent de l'autre côté?
S'ils tombent, non, mais les libéraux, je vous donne un exemple tout de suite, Michael. Surrey Sud, White Rock. Deux petites voix, là c'est du... Puis là, ça a changé 3 fois. Alors, Victoria, plus 7. Si ça se confirme pour lui, ça compte pas parce qu'il est dans les avances ou en tête, là. Bon, en voici une. Si Jill McKnight prend le dessus sur Jesse Saota, les libéraux en ajoutent une. Alors, il y en a comme ça 30, 33 même. Ce qui fait que on ne peut pas pour l'instant confirmer que le sort de Carney est minoritaire et c'est comme ça dans Cumberland, Colchester.
Si vous voulez faire
22,
la mathématique, Patrice, les bloquistes, je dis pas qu'ils veulent faire ça, qu'ils vont faire ça, mais ils pourraient gouverner avec les conservateurs.
Absolument. Et je pensais à ça tantôt. Si Poilievre avait bâti des ponts, s'il y avait, on revient tout le temps à ça. Si tu bâtis des ponts, puis t'as des amis, puis tu cries pas après tout le monde, quand c'est le temps de faire un truc comme ça, les gens sont plus ouverts.
Sauf que ça
alors,
serait
156, 148.
On dit pas que ça va se faire.
Non.
Mais gouverner avec il pourrait si.
Mais rappelons-nous, à l'époque de Harper, l'idée était, c'est que les conservateurs disaient que c'est le premier parti, celui qui a le plus de sièges, qui doit faire le gouvernement et qu'une telle coalition qui serait formée avec le deuxième et le troisième serait illégitime. Alors, je voyais mal M. Poilievre jouer
l'argumentaire de M. Harper.
C'est intéressant.
Oui, mais il n'est pas là aujourd'hui pour défendre cet argumentaire.
Oui, c'est à lui qui a la première tentative de faire le gouvernement. S'il échoue, il peut y avoir une deuxième tentative avec avec l'opposition officielle appuyée par d'autres partis.
Alexandre Boulris réélu. 5e mandat pour Alexandre Boulris dans Rosemont, la petite patrie. Donc, confortable pour M. Boulris qui se retrouve dans un caucus pour l'instant de 11. Gérard Deltel réélu aussi facilement dans Louis-Saint-Laurent, Akiawandrac. Et Lévis Lotbinière, Jacques Gourde, tiens. Donc les périodes de questions vont être
le futur Louis Plamondon.
Bonne nouvelle pour Infoman.
8e mandat pour M.
Oui, mais he's coming up.
Ah oui, mais Infoman a fait campagne, je suis sûr.
Laurier Sainte-Marie élu, Stephen Guilbeault, ministre de la Culture et d'Identité canadienne. Donc élu, c'est Nina Machouf qui arrive 2e. Et University Rosedale, c'est réglé pour Chrystia Freeland. Je l'ai répété 2-3 reprises, Mme Freeland, qui et elle parle en ce moment. Elle est un peu responsable de tout ce qu'on est en train de décrire.
Circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
And is that tight? My gosh, that's not a very stable time for anybody. David, you got some stuff you want to talk about?
Look, Rosie, I think the political science term for that is a parliament from hell. But what's happening right now is the stories in Ontario, folks. I mean, look, the Liberals have been projected to win the most seats here tonight, but they are down in Ontario, not just below where we thought they needed to be for the path of majority. They're just flat out down. And like, let's go through some of the regions here. The NDP vote is nowhere in Ontario, but a lot of it's going conservative. So we've seen the Conservatives moving into the Peel region here and like gaining seats in the York region. But what's also interesting is if you go to Southwestern Ontario, look at this. Windsor right now is blue. London Fanshawe is blue. I believe Kitchener Centre, the Green Party seat, that is blue right now. And I bet you if we go into the Hamilton area, we're going to see some of that there as well. Look, there's no orange in Hamilton, but in Hamilton Centre, there's a Conservative in the lead right now. So this is the top line numbers, and sort of the conventional wisdom of this election has been that the NDP vote collapse would just all huddle around Mark Carney as the new Progressive Party avatar. But what you're seeing is a lot of those orange votes seem to have gone blue, or at least the orange ridings are going blue, because the dynamics where red and orange are pretty strong seconds and third. And you know what? Doug Ford rode this dynamic to a majority in Ontario because you had Bonnie Crump.
Can win out over any strategic voting coalescing on the progressive side. So we're keeping watch on those two very close ridings and several others that are shaping up to be real races.
And
Omar, Bashi?
Mijun, thank you so much. And in many ways, BC pivotal for the future of the NDP. You see the tracker, as Mijun mentioned, 10 seats leading and elected for the NDP. They need 12 for official party status. Will they even have that before the night is over? The results in BC, particularly on the island where they have 6 of the 7 seats, or had, I should say, a dissolution, that is really going to fill in the story for the NDP and the future of the party, and also the future of its leader as well.
Yeah, and the sort of drop in their support in Ontario, a big part of the story as well. We'll look to get some of the key results in that province that are emblematic of that. Right now, though, we want to head over to the riding of Central Nova, long held by the McKay family, now held for a number of elections by Sean Fraser, in a bit of a nail-biter over the last number of hours. I want to head to Paul Hollingsworth, who is actually over there at Sean Fraser's headquarters, I believe. Paul.
More ridings from the NDP than the Liberals were, and that's not necessarily what was expected. They were expected to gain some, but they have, in this late evening so far, the Conservatives have closed the gap on the Liberals in ways that I don't think were anticipated, and we have to watch it closely. At the moment, they are still a few numbers away from being able to overtake, obviously from 155 to 151, but in terms of our meter as well, they are still a little bit shy of what they need. But boy, they're within about 4, and they're within about 4. So those two actually mesh. They're not that far away from the Liberals at the moment, and it seems like some late votes have come in that have shifted some ridings. And is there more of that to be seen?
We just don't know.
Are we in for a big surprise? This is a big surprise as it is that it's this close.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to look at some particular ridings here. This is Vancouver Island, Saanich Gulf Islands. Elizabeth May, the incumbent there, and she has the lead.
Well, you have to hand it to her. Now, where are we at? We're at 25, but still, she's pulling out a lead right now. She's held the riding since 2011, and give her credit, right? Like, she just has been able to keep them on the map, the Green Party.
Oh, and this is early results in Burnaby Central. 9 of 200 polls reporting, and this is Jagmeet Singh's riding. He, at this stage, is in third place.
And here we are back in the 12th seat. Look at the ticker, NDP 11. If only the leader won his seat, they'd have official party status. It's early. I'm not so sure the NDP are going to hold 11 by the time we're done the night, but we'll see.
And this is Beauce.
Maxime Bernier in fourth. Is he going to get the message and pack it in as the People's Party guy? Not sure.
He used to own that riding when he was with the Conservatives, but he gave up to Conservatives, and voters gave up on him.
All right, do we have one more? Carleton. This is the first results we're seeing, or I'm seeing at least, from the riding where Pierre Poilievre is running tonight.
5 polls.
Fanjoy, the Liberal candidate, was working hard to take this seat from Pierre Poilievre, who has been elected 7 times in a row. This is early.
Well, yeah, way too early to say, but how weird would that be if the Conservatives win 150 or so ridings, or high 140s, and Mr. Poilievre were to lose there? Let's watch it anyway.
Yeah,
it's interesting, because, I mean, there were a lot of public servants in that riding, and who knows how they mobilized, but I think we need to wait there.
Okay, David, what are you looking at?
I wanted to come back to the GTA. You talked about close races a few minutes ago, Don, and we got a ton of them in the Bramptons and Mississaugas, and I've been saying this forever. If you win one Brampton, you tend to...
Look, they're at 11. They're at 11 seats right now. It requires 12 to get official party status.
Right.
This just in. If they get 11 seats, they're going to have no trouble negotiating official party status anyway, because they'd offer their support to the new minority Liberal government.
But then we're back where we started. And I don't think that's going to do that much to quash Western alienation after the 10 years we just had.
For the reason you gave, Rona,
yes, worse. The Bloc is worse, but the NDP.
To go with the Bloc.
But I mean, the NDP is not going to be any better than what we just had for the last 10 years.
But depending on how this goes, I'm wondering, for the Conservatives on the panel here, is Blanchette on the phone with Poilievre right now, accepting those calls, wondering if maybe he's going to be I mean, it's not only the Liberals that are facing this question.
We are not going to be in a coalition with separatists.
So that would never happen. Well, then I guess then, if that's...
You know what's going to happen here is Mark Carney and Pierre Poilievre are going to have to work together. They're going to have to figure out where they have some common ground.
If he stays.
He'll stay.
Yeah. But I mean, I appreciate the discussion that we're having regarding dance partners, right? I think also this election has been very different, right? Canadians are wanting the parties to work together because we have a significant threat before us. And I think it's very important. I've known Mark Carney from before. He's not the type of person that's just going to be placating for the sake of who do I work with. This is about dealing with the most consequential threat. And to be honest, I believe it. So this is about working together. We have premiers working together, right? So it's incumbent upon us federally to be working together as well. And I believe that Mark Carney is the right person to do that.
Okay, but this, in Mark Miller's words from earlier tonight, somebody from his own party, he is a rookie. So when you're talking about a minority government like this, this takes politics. This does not have experience with politics.
It is a challenge.
We have seen people come from outside and land in Ottawa and get chewed up by the gears of bureaucracy. So how does he lead in a situation that right now, look at 157, 148.
The challenge he also has, too, is the Liberal Party has always been a coalition. I mean, certainly is now with all these NDP voters that have supported it. So he's got the challenge of dance party with the Bloc on the one hand, and then in a kind of a dance party inside happening down in the basement of the Liberal Party of Canada, where he's got to find his way to reaching his economic goals, which I think he sincerely believes in, when there may be a lot of people inside his party who might not be, super supportive of some of those things.
James, I want to take that thought bubble that I can see that's above your head and get you to say it out loud. What do you think?
Yeah, well, look, when you're elected into a majority government, then you can kind of plan out your agenda over the course
of 36 to 48 months. When you're elected into a minority government, you have to prioritize, and you have to look around the nature of the parliament that's in front of you and where you can get your votes, what requires legislative approval, what you can do by governing council, what you can do through partnership with provinces, or do through Budget Implementation Act. So as a prime minister in a minority government, it'll be incumbent on Prime Minister Carney to say, these are my priorities, and before he puts those priorities out there, do proper consultation and recognize that he doesn't have a majority of the House. He doesn't have a majority of the popular vote. He has an obligation to respect the democratic mandate that is expressed in the entirety of Parliament and work with others in order to get things done. He is correct, Prime Minister Carney is correct, that the biggest challenge that Canada will have, at least to the calendar 2025 and probably for the next couple of years, is the threat of the abrogation of the Canada-US Free Trade Agreement with the United States, the imposition of tariffs, and the belligerence from the White House. He can find willing partners in good faith in the Conservative Party in order to do certain things that will get Canadian products to global markets to mitigate the risk of Donald Trump's threat on Canada. Conservatives acting in good faith, Liberals acting with open minds and in good faith can get a lot of good things done for the country, but it requires people to come together and for Mr. Carney to come forward and to be prepared to do that.
Okay, so for those of you who know Mr. Poilievre, then, can Canada First and Canada Strong work together?
Yes.
Yes, but I would say this. I think what we're going to need is for Mr. Carney to come a little bit further to the center, because right now, as you said, he's got that basement full of left-wing socialist voters that have got him there. I'm not sorry, NDP voters.
Not sure that's an exact quote.
NDP voters, I'll paraphrase. And he, for instance, his platform is more spending than Trudeau ever did. He also has a higher industrial carbon tax and then a carbon tariff at the border. And so when you look at tax increases and big spending, I don't think many Canadians want that. Definitely no Conservatives want it. So maybe he can back away from some of those things and work with Pierre on some of those things.
And maybe I'm romantic, or maybe I'm naive, or maybe I'm both. But it has been said, and it's true, it's one of my favorite quotes in politics, it's remarkable what you can achieve if you don't care who gets the credit. And if the purpose of Parliament is to nation build, and the purpose of Parliament is to bolster the Canadian risks against a President of the United States who today is joking about us being a 51st state, who mocks our country, who mocks our Prime Minister, if the threat against Canada from the President of the United States isn't enough for us to work together, if you don't care...
Alexandre Boulris is a survivor of the 2011 Orange Wave and has won it again election after election. At this time, it's been a bit tougher for him this time. Jean-Sébastien Vallée is an unknown in the riding. It was the Liberal Party decided to appoint him as a candidate. He wasn't well known in the riding. Alexandre Boulris should have won much more easily, but he has been re-elected. Nevertheless, you can see the results as we had the answer to our question, Michael.
So we were wondering whether or not he would actually hold the riding. I will say
he held with that share of vote you showed, Ian, very impressively, but the Liberals gaining that seat in the north is not insignificant. They'll be happy about that. Here in Regina, they were hoping to pick up some steam, maybe Regina-Wascana, Ralph Goodale's former seat. That didn't come to pass as of yet, and you showed us Andrew Scheer's results. No surprise there. Andrew Scheer winning for the 8th time. The class of 2004 coming in at the same time as Pierre Poilievre. As 24-year-olds, we're waiting to hear from Andrew Scheer. He'll be speaking with us, we believe, momentarily.
And what about the state of the NDP in Saskatchewan tonight?
Yeah, Ian, it's a bit surprising and disappointing, I think, at the same time for the NDP, because they did so well in the provincial election, putting up a big fight in that provincial result, really increasing their seat count, but that didn't translate federally. The federal and provincial NDP aren't really aligned, and that showed, I think, tonight in the results, that 13% drop in the share of the vote for the NDP, very significant, and the Liberals picking up a lot of second places across the province, which is a surprise here in Saskatchewan.
All right, Adam Hunter, thank you very much for giving us the lay of the land in Saskatchewan. Rosemary.
Hey, thanks for that, Ian. Let me show you what's going on at the bottom of your screen there. And that is a whole lot of nothing definitive, basically. 157 leading and elected for the Liberals, 149 for the Conservatives. The Bloc sort of sticking around that number now that most of the counting is done in Quebec. The NDP at 10 and the Greens at 1, and I believe that's Saanich Gulf Islands at this stage. So we are waiting to be able to give you a better sense of what kind of government Mark Carney will lead in his new mandate, where he is an elected prime minister, not just one who won leadership. That is Liberal headquarters, where there was a lot of excitement earlier in the night when it was declared that they would form government. But right now, they are
better than 50 or 75. But Lisa Harris, she was in a close race last time around when she ran and lost, and it's she could suffer the same fate this time.
Longueuil, Saint-Hubert. This one, about the same number, 338 votes between the Liberal and the incumbent Bloc Québécois.
This would be one of the pickups for the Liberals over the Bloc Québécois tonight. It's actually where the Liberals have done some of their most effective work, is in picking up seats in Quebec from the BQ.
Wow, Terrebonne.
Terrebonne, almost neck and neck here with the BQ and the Liberal candidate.
Natalie Sinclair Desgagnés is an Oxford-trained economist, and the Liberal has just graduated as an economics student. So, economics in Terrebonne.
And Anita Anand is leading now by 3 points. A little while ago, she was just a little bit behind. We are about 2/3 of the way through the count, so there you go.
Not a smooth sail for her at this point.
Not at all.
She is leading.
This has been far from a smooth sail for the Liberal Party in much of the country.
Mm-hmm. All right, David Aiken, what are you looking at?
Let's take a tour through some Western Canadian cities, because there's some interesting results there. Right now, I've got Winnipeg up on the screen right now, and that's the one little NDP dot, Winnipeg Centre. Leah Gazan, the New Democrat incumbent, she's a little bit ahead of the Liberals. The Liberals did hold this in 2015. It often is New Democrat. Pat Martin was the long-time New Democrat for this riding. So we'll see where this goes. We're keeping an eye on it. Conservatives doing relatively well again, this is downtown Winnipeg. Winnipeg Centre, wanted to take a look at that. Winnipeg West might be a pickup for the Liberals. In Winnipeg West, Doug A. Olson, an emergency room doctor who was the MP, then he got beat by Marty Morantz, and now they're back for another rematch, and this time A. Olson is up. He's up by 2,000 votes with 140 polls reporting, so Doug A. Olson might be feeling a little comfortable. We'll keep an eye on that. And then in Kildonan St. Paul, Raquel Dancho, who is the public safety critic for the Conservative, in a bit of a tight race. I just want to take a look. We have had, as you can see, some lead changes through the night. This is taking a look at as the polls came in. It's sort of flattened out a bit with a small lead for Raquel Dancho there. And then this is a loss for this might be a loss for the NDP in Elmwood Transcona. This is another rematch of a by-election. There was a by-election here last year, and Leila Dance won for the NDP against Colin Reynolds. Colin Reynolds is ahead right now. Reynolds is a leader in his private sector union. He's an electrician, and we know Pierre Poilievre made a lot paid a lot of attention to private sector unions, woodworkers, laborers, you name it. And this Colin Reynolds was one of the poster guys, if you will, for Poilievre and the Conservatives' pitch there. So that's what's going on in Winnipeg. Let's zip over to Alberta. Let's take a look at Calgary. Right now in Calgary, the only Liberal who's got a seat, George Chahal in Calgary is losing right now to the Conservative. Not by much, 344 votes back with 45 polls in. Now, this riding, Calgary Confederation, this part of Calgary hasn't voted for a Liberal since 1940. It's been a while. But right now, Corey Hogan is the vice president of the University of Calgary, and that's University of Calgary is in this riding, is 169 votes ahead of Jeremy Nixon, a former MLA. So Nixon used to run for the UCP. Now he's trying to be a CPC, and he's a little bit behind there. That would be a historic win for the Liberals. That's Calgary Centre. Greg McLean, the bilingual Conservative incumbent, is a little bit behind Lindsay Lunau. So there's some close races In Calgary, potential pickups for the Liberals there. Up in Edmonton, not so good for the Liberals. The Liberals might have been expected to win at least two, Edmonton Centre and Edmonton Southeast. And that's not happening right now. Edmonton Centre, the Conservatives are ahead by 110 votes over the Liberals. And in Edmonton Southeast, where Amarjeet Sohi is running, 50 polls in, and he's well back. He's more than a couple of thousand votes back of Jagmeet Singh Mahal in Edmonton Southeast. That would be a big victory for the Conservatives, who are worried there might be something going on there. And in Edmonton Strathcona, I would have put this as maybe the second or third safest NDP seat in the country. Heather McPherson, their foreign affairs critic, she's 757 votes up on the Conservative. The last non-NDP to hold this riding was, in fact, a Conservative. It was Raheem Jaffer. Some may remember that name. So that's what's going on in Edmonton, Calgary, and Winnipeg. Some interesting results there, with all parties sort of making some gains or not making some gains, or we'll see how it all plays out. Lots of votes still to be counted, Donna.
All right, David, thanks. And you can see the Liberals and Conservatives, excuse me, the numbers on the bottom of your screen there keep flipping around. Right now, they are 12 points apart. Have I got that math right? Yes. And the Liberals hovered above 160 for a while there, but as I said it went back up. So, Eric, you were looking at the gains and losses, where the parties. Let's do your swing meter. What are you seeing?
Well, let's have a look, I guess, first of all, at the Conservatives. Now, when we talk about this, for the Conservatives to form government, that's that number we're talking about for government. Their lucky number was 27. That's a combination of their gains and Liberal losses. And the reason they're not as close to forming government, based on our swing meters, is they have gained 19, but the Liberals have also gained 7. So you have to take those 7 off of the Conservatives' gains, takes them back to 12. Well, if they're at 12 is where they are right now, for a total number to get towards government at 27, they're a long way from being able to form government. The Liberals, on the other hand, are also a long way now from where they wanted to get to, which was to form a majority. And right now, and that one, they don't have to worry about the Conservatives. They just have to pick up a bunch of seats and win them against whoever to have enough gains to get to a majority. And we said they needed a gains of 18 total. On balance, they've only picked up 7. They've gained 28 seats, but they've also lost 21 seats. All of those are to the Conservatives. So they've lost a passel of ridings to the Conservatives. A lot of those are in Ontario, in places that they may not have expected. But right now, they're up 7. They need to get to 18. That means they're up 8 now, but they're 10 away from that. How many ridings are going to change from what we're seeing on the screen below us? They're 161 to 146. They are just a little, it seems like they're a little too far away from the majority line to get to a majority. The Conservatives are a little too far away from the Liberals to catch them. And we are sitting in that realm right now, Donna, where the Liberals are, as we've called earlier, safe to assume, and don't want to assume too much, but we've called them to form the government. Doesn't look like they can get to a majority. And of course, it doesn't look like the Conservatives can catch up.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Let's go to the Liberal headquarters, where Mark Carney, I assume, will make an appearance at some point this evening. Mackenzie Gray is...
If this 5% holds up, it will be the worst showing in the history of the New Democrats. The other worst showing was in the 1993 election, a piece of history that Jagmeet Singh probably doesn't want to be associated with, but looks like that's where he's at.
No, we'll certainly have to wait and see how he answers to that this evening. But again, some really close numbers here. Mark Carney at 42% and Poilievre at 41%.
Well, think of Pierre Poilievre. Now he can say that he's done better than Stephen Harper. Right? Like, he might not have been able to form a government, but that's still up in the air. But the thing is that he's done very well. More people have voted Conservative in this election than in any election in recent memory.
Yeah, there's certainly an underlying story there. Let's take a look now at the gains and losses. So the Liberals up 1 seat, and the Conservatives, as we were just talking about them and their popularity, up 7 seats, Nick.
Yeah, I think for the Liberals, even just up 1, considering they're at a near-death experience in terms of where they were at and where they were looking at a Conservative supermajority, being only up 1 is probably decent. For the Conservatives, they can claim that they're making headways not just in the popular vote, but also in the number of seats. But bad news for Blanchette and bad news for Singh.
Certainly. And Nick, we're seeing an interesting story play out in Ontario, typically helping to decipher who wins an election. Right now, though, it looks like it's who's going to, have a minority majority. They're making that ruling. The Liberals down 12 seats.
Yeah, we talked a lot about vote efficiency and how popular support would convert into seats. It looks like the Conservative ground game in Ontario was very effective at converting their level of support, even though it was trailing the Liberals, into seats in battleground Ontario.
Okay, let's move over to Western Canada and see how things have changed there. Potential seat change for the Conservative, gaining 8 seats in the West. The Liberals potentially gaining 6 seats, and the NDP, Nick, take a look at that, down possibly 10 seats.
Yes, we were talking about the feeding frenzy in British Columbia, with both the Liberals and the Conservatives going into British Columbia repeatedly because they saw the NDP vulnerability. That's manifested itself, and both the Conservatives and the Liberals have benefited.
Okay, Nick, so let's take a look now right across the country as we see this, the potential seat change right across the country from Atlantic Canada to the West Coast. What stands out? What stands out the most to you on this one, Nick?
Well, what really stands out is you can see the Liberals picking up in Quebec, Conservatives in Ontario and the West, and, the NDP just basically a setback everywhere.
Okay, a really interesting story playing out here this evening, especially for the NDP, and we'll see a little bit later on, where those votes really went and where their supporters went. And again, right now, CTV News declaring a Liberal minority. Back to you.
All right, Heather, thank you so much. Let's bring in Corey, Kathleen, and Scott right now. I want to go back to the story that's developing and emerging right now in Pierre Poilievre's riding of Carleton. We heard James Morse say just minutes ago he thinks that Pierre Poilievre will capture his riding. What's going through your mind, Corey, as you're watching these results?
I'm a lot less certain that that's going to be the case, because I look at
we had triggered an election earlier. It is potential. There was a potential that we could have had many more seats, but it was also very, very strong. I would say probability that the Prime Minister, that there would be a majority Conservative government, and that would be very bad for Canadians. So there was that. I think and Jagmeet Singh said he couldn't stomach the idea of a Conservative majority, and I think that many NDPers would agree with him about that. Many Canadians would agree with him about that. There was also the fact that the dental care program that we had negotiated hadn't yet been fully rolled out, and that pharmacare deals had not yet been signed. We had reached an agreement on pharmacare, but we needed to get some of those deals started so that Canadians could start to receive free birth control, free diabetes devices and drugs, and other things. And so that kind of helps to institutionalize the pharmacare program, and certainly the expansion of dental care was really important to us as well. So I think it was the right decision not to trigger an election earlier. I think that having a Pierre Poilievre majority Conservative government, and he had pledged at that time to eliminate the pharmacare and dental care programs, would have been a bad decision for Canadians.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you may have been around the NDP since at least 1993. That obviously was a historic low in terms of election results. What lessons do you have, having gone through that experience in the 90s?
Well, the lesson I have is that it's better to have more seats than less seats. And, certainly during that period of time, one of the big lessons was that a majority Liberal government without a strong enough NDP gets away with things that I think are very problematic. Because during the 90s, when we didn't have official party status, the Liberals had a big majority. That was when they eliminated the housing program, made major cuts to health and social transfers, and transformed EI, employment insurance, into a system that no longer works for workers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Back to you, Michael.
Mick, thank you for that. Anne McGrath, thank you for the time you shared with CPAC this evening. Listen, let's take one more look at the leading and elected board at this moment in time. You see there, Liberals elected in 115 seats, leading in 49. Conservatives elected in 118, leading in 28. I want to go down to the bottom of the board because we also now have one Green elected, and that is, we can tell you, Elizabeth May, the Green Party leader. She does get reelected in the riding of Saanich Gulf Islands, and there you go. The results board there. by over 2,000 votes over the Conservative Cathy Onstead on Vancouver Island. But yes, Elizabeth May will be returning to the House of Commons. And with that, let's bring in Eric Grenier. And Eric, we continue to watch these numbers evolve. As I said, when you look at the leading column, it's less than 100 seats that still need to be determined. We right now are looking at the Conservatives at 146 seats.
Conservatives. This is the story that is playing out in many, many ridings across Ontario, potentially across the country. That is why the number keeps bouncing the way it does at the bottom of your screen, Rosie.
Okay, yeah, it sure does. It's moving around an awful lot, but right now tracking a little more heavily for the Liberals. Remember, a majority government, 172. The Liberals right now projected or elected in 164. Let me show you what the vote share looks like right across the country. Adrian showed you that one particular riding. Look at that. 42.6 for the Liberals, 41.7 for the Conservatives. That is how close things are. And again, the second part of that story is as you go down your screen and you see what's happened to the Bloc and the NDP at just 5%, which is undoubtedly a devastating outcome for them. They are not yet right at official party status. Not sure whether they will get there. That is the number 12 that you have to watch for. But again, lots of things still fluid and in flux. And Ian's going to tell us a little bit about some of that.
Let's take a look at Vancouver Island. This has been a fortress in the past for the NDP, and a lot of people wondered what would happen to their seats. And you can see here that right now the NDP is trailing in 4 of the ridings that they hold on Vancouver Island, and both the Liberals and the Conservatives are taking the lead there. None of these, though, are projected elected. But let's take a look, first of all, at Victoria. Will Greaves, University of Victoria professor, has pretty well doubled the vote share for the Conservatives in a riding which for a long time has been held by the NDP. I talked to another professor at UVic who said that Professor Greaves got the nomination back when it didn't look like there was really any chance of the Liberals winning. Well, now next year he's not going to teach any students. He's going to be heading to Ottawa. Esquimalt Saanich Suk, Stephanie McLean has gone from being a cabinet minister in the Rachel Notley NDP government in Alberta to displacing the NDP candidate here. This is Randall Garrison's old riding, so of course he was an analyst with us earlier tonight. Obviously the incumbent not running again, but Maya Tate, Mayor Suk, was seen as the star candidate, and you can see she is in 3rd place. Let's take a look at Nanaimo Ladysmith, another place where the NDP support has plummeted. And Tamara Cronus is a lawyer, but on her website it says you might find her bartending at the Legion, sport shooting, or playing bridge. So a lawyer with a bit of a twist. That's kind of interesting. And yeah, huge lead going on in Nanaimo Ladysmith. Let's look at North Island, Powell River. This is a riding that I think some Conservatives thought they would win easily. And this is a riding that so far the NDP candidate, who is not the incumbent, has managed to hold on to more or less the share that the NDP had last time around, but still Conservatives in the lead by just over 500 votes, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I'm going to show a couple of boards myself now to explain a little bit more of the story we're seeing tonight. This is sort of what we call a party summary board, how they're doing right across the country at this stage in the evening. So you can see their vote share 5.5% overall. But look at those numbers on the right, on the far right of your screen. Those numbers down. The NDP is down in every region of the country. And let me show you where some of that has gone by showing you this next board. This is the Liberal Party. Overall, 42.6%. But look at that. Look at what has happened to them on the right of your screen. Up in every single region of the country. And that explains a little bit where we are tonight. That collapse of the NDP, yes, has supported everyone, the Conservatives and the Liberals, but the Liberals really surging with some support growth, some growth in every part of the country. Let's go to David Cochrane.
Yeah, Rosie, I mean, the NDP are down by double-digit percentage points everywhere. They could go down by double-digit percentage points. The only spot where they're not are the ones where they were in the single digits to begin with. But look, the path to party status was a difficult one for the NDP coming into Jagmeet Singh's 3rd national election. They need 12 seats to get there. it's going to be tough. They have nothing in Atlantic Canada. We know that. They do have one seat in the island of Montreal. Alexandre Boulay-Rees was re-elected in the Rosemont.
Some inroads in Ontario, that may have prevented the Liberals from getting to a majority, but they have not done well enough in Quebec and Eastern Canada, which has been their problem really ever since the Progressive Conservative Party blew up in 1993. They have, they've moved that center of gravity for the Conservatives out to Western Canada, and as a result, they've had a hard time connecting with enough Conservatives to win enough seats to form government. I mean, they've had one majority since the Mulroney days, and that was with Stephen Harper in 2011, Donna. But for the most part, the Liberals are governing as they've governed so often. They just keep winning, 2 or 3 elections before the Conservatives can win an election. So at the moment, we're seeing it kind of unfold. Some of the reasons why the Conservatives are doing better, and reasons why the Liberals are still holding on.
149 seats is not nothing where they're at right now, but it's not enough.
And a lot of that is what they did in Ontario to pick up.
Eric, thank you. Let's go over to David Aiken, who is with Daryl Bricker from Ipsos.
Yeah, thanks, Donna. So Daryl, of course, Daryl Bricker of Ipsos. People have been out doing exit polls, asking voters as they come out of a voting booth a whole range of interesting questions. I mean, there's 80, 90 questions loaded in here. We can spend an hour and a half there. But let's start off with, we were going to start off with, I think, wild card.
Right.
Is Canada on the right track? So this is someone who voted today, might have voted for a Liberal, might have voted for a Conservative. Here's all voters, 7,000 people, and we're not on the right track, says people who voted today, and they didn't throw the bums out.
Right. So this is the context of the campaign. So Mark Carney is seen as the man of the moment on one issue. The Liberals designed their entire campaign around it. It was dealing with Donald Trump in the United States. So on that issue, fine. But as far as the Liberal record is concerned, what they've produced in Canada over the last 10 years, this is the effect. More people, by a considerable amount, feel that the country's on the wrong direction rather than the right direction.
And we can say, folks going through it, boomers, Gen Xers, it's pretty consistent right across the board.
Yeah.
We're going in the wrong direction. Now, I think it was attitudes on Canada.
Oops, sorry, I did that.
Is that me?
That was me.
Okay, there we go. Canada is broken. This is what Pierre Poilievre was saying last fall. He got criticized for saying that, and yet quite a few people agree.
A fifth of us strongly agree with Pierre Poilievre was saying. Almost half of us overall think that Canada is broken. This, again, underscores the fact that people are not satisfied with the direction of the country, not satisfied with the last 10 years of the Liberal administration, and even though the Liberals can sneak in on this one issue, the overall context they're going to be walking into after this in a minority government situation possibly is going to be difficult.
Let's say, I mean, the data that the parties have, I'm sure they're doing polling something similar to this. If you're in Poilievre's inner circle tomorrow or in the coming days, you probably go, see, we were right all along. This is probably validating the axis of their campaign, essentially.
Until 3 months ago, 2 months ago, they were right.
Right.
And that's what people were jumping on. This is what underscores, folks, time for a change. I hear that a lot in politics. There was a really strong belief prior to Mark Carney becoming the leader of the Liberal Party and Donald Trump doing what he decided to do, a real desire to change. That hasn't gone away.
You're Mark Carney. You sit down with your cabinet. You have this data that people think Canada's broken. We're moving in the wrong direction. He did move quickly on carbon taxes. He moved quickly on a couple other things. I guess he's got to move even more quickly to really show that his government is taking some of these concerns seriously. That would be the takeaway for the Liberals, I assume.
He's on a very short leash. His priority, and as far as Canadians are concerned, is one issue, which is dealing with Donald Trump. Everything else is going to be difficult for him and going to be difficult to manage.
Yeah. So, guys, as we go back, we're going to probably talk about this later in the night as we listen to leaders' speeches. We may hear, I think, at least one leader, that'd be Jagmeet Singh, who is probably going to talk about his future. And that is, in terms of the parliamentary calendar, that, while a leadership race unfolds, the NDP are not going to want to force an election, but they may not hold the balance of power. It's going to be a very interesting parliament, I think.
Yeah, a very interesting parliament. We haven't seen anything like this in quite a while.
No, indeed. All right, Donna, Mr. Eric, what do you think?
Okay, great. Yeah, it's Liberals at 162, Conservatives 149, and it's just, I think as long as there are these close ridings, we're just going to see those numbers just fluctuate.
Yeah, I mean, the longer it goes, when we talked about those numbers won't fluctuate as much as time goes on, because more things get in, more things get a little bit more into cement. But so it's going to be hard now. The Conservatives, as we called, aren't going to catch them. It was just that there were some ridings that gave us a bit of a surprise there for a while. But right now,
let's look at Lac Saint-Jean, Gilles Duceppe's son running there, and we have projected that he, in fact, will win that riding by a handy majority there, or a handy percentage. Let's go to Mercedes Stevenson and the political panel, including Gilles Duceppe.
Yes, congratulations.
Thanks, not me, it's him.
He learned, I'm sure, a thing or two, though, from Dad.
Yeah, but we're always learning.
That's true.
From one or the other.
That's right. A humble politician, exactly. Not always a contradiction in terms.
Humility being the word of the evening.
Exactly. And that's on that note, I want to go to you, Seamus.
Sure. Let me tee it up for you.
The Liberals being handed a government here, but it's a lot closer than people expected. What is the message that Canadians are sending tonight to Mark Carney?
Well, let's see what happens. These numbers are still so close. We're still watching some very tight races, including my friend Anthony Germain in Newfoundland. We'll see. I think regardless of what happens this evening, whoever forms government, it looks like it'll be Prime Minister Carney. Yeah, you take it with some dose of humility. Canadians are sending a message that they want somebody who's going to be able to negotiate with an American neighbor that has suddenly become a threat. But there were a lot of other things coming out of COVID, coming out of affordability, interest rates that they are not happy with. And so you got to get busy. And from what I understand, he told the Liberal War Room earlier this morning that if indeed the Liberals did win, that you hit the ground running right away.
Yes, but the problem is we don't know tonight because there'll be a lot of recounting, I think.
Yeah, by the look.
So we don't know who will be the Prime Minister, because if he doesn't have the majority, he will have to deal with whom.
So my question.
So if the Bloc has the balance of power, be sure they will negotiate with both parties to obtain what they want to have.
So what could happen tonight is that you could have, we declare a Liberal minority, for example, but then they ally with the Conservatives.
If you look at the situation.
So for Canadians who don't follow the intricacies of how a minority parliament works.
Yes, please lay this out for us.
Well, I'll cautiously take some steps. The Liberals, given these numbers, if something like this holds, they get the first opportunity.
They do.
To form a government. And what they will appeal to the Governor General is say, we have an agreement with the Bloc or the NDP, and this is how we're going to govern. If no such agreement exists,
and confidence of the House,
and then we're going to return to the House as soon as possible. We'll have a vote to show that we can govern. If they can't show that agreement, and the Bloc are sitting saying, well, we're talking to both the Liberals and the Conservatives, there may be a scenario, and this would be a bizarre moment, but maybe not, where we're seeing Pierre Poilievre attempting to make a deal with the Bloc leader, which as a Western Canadian. Well, I think it's bizarre in the sense of.
Sorry, I'm asking.
We've been through a scenario before with Mr. Dion and Jack Layton.
We got along fine.
There's moments where we can get along fine.
Paul Martin, I did it with Stephen Harper. I would ask any party in a situation when they could have the balance of power.
Yeah, so it's a very.
They won't say. No party will say okay.
But
you say, wait a second, you will negotiate before saying okay.
Beyond for power, the question will be for what? I just think for a Conservative leader who has been careful, we talked about this a little bit, Poilievre has been careful not to attack the Bloc. Not like he did the Liberals or the NDP.
But the Bloc has attacked the Conservatives previously.
Not during the campaign, but a lot before the campaign.
A lot before. So do you see a scenario where Pierre Poilievre would be willing to make some of the concessions that he would have to make, things like supply management, with the Bloc Québécois to try to form a government?
I think that any good leader would listen to anyone who would want to come to him to discuss possibilities. Why wouldn't you listen to them?
But who your partner is can affect your own reputation. And that's
in a minority.
Of course it does. So look at how the NDP look at how the NDP have been affected over the last 3 years of making an agreement with Mr. Trudeau when he was Prime Minister had a very, very negative effect on our reputation with a number of Canadians. This is calculus.
Let's make them even more.
Seamus, go ahead.
Who will be doing the negotiating?
Well, isn't that an interesting question?
Right? Who is the leader of the NDP after tonight? Who is the leader of the Conservative
It's
Party?
not a while ago. We will come back and we will revisit what's going to happen in terms of the leaders. But, I mean, Donna, it just tells you what a wild night we're having here. The numbers all over the place, the possibility of a bloc-backed Conservative minority. It's all kinds of interesting things that are unfolding here that we didn't anticipate.
Yeah, I mean, you start doing the math and figuring out who could work with who and how that's all might shake down, and then who's leading which party. Yes, lots to watch for, and it's still, all we know is there's a Liberal government. We don't know the shape of it at this point.
It's always a potentially more explosive arrangement. Any party, national party, that would strike a deal with the so-called separatist party in Quebec, like it's just a little bit more volatile to think about that as opposed to the other. So everybody would have to sort of be thinking hard about just what kind of deal and with whom when you look at these possibilities. But the possibilities are lining up right now.
Okay, let's go to Carolyn Jarvis, who's in Toronto. I think you're with Chrystia Freeland. I am.
Nikki Ashton is trailing by quite a bit, so we don't have enough information there to declare this riding, but you can see it's a big and solid lead for Rebecca Chartrand, who lost this riding by a small margin to Nikki Ashton way back in 2015. And let's look at the perfect bellwether, the riding in Winnipeg South, which since I think 1988, the winner of this riding is also a member of the government. It happens time and time again, and it's happened again. Terry Duguid is leading, or actually has been declared elected there. Bartley Kivas, our CBC reporter who's done some excellent work in Manitoba covering politics, is with the winning candidate in that riding. Go ahead, Bartley.
So, Ian, as you mentioned, Winnipeg South is a perfect bellwether since it was created in 1988. It is only elected candidates from the party that wins, and I'm with one of them right now. Terry Duguid, first of all, when you were thinking in December 2024.
Staying in the GTA right now, another close race, Mississauga East, Cooksville. You have there Peter Fonseca leading right now over Nita Kang of the Conservatives, 170 polls reporting of 222. Switching over now to Brampton South, you have there Sukhdeep Kang leading over Sonia Sidhu. Again, the spread very tight there, 130 polls. Switching over right now to another close race in the GTA. This is Brampton, Chinguacousy Park. You have there Liberal Shafaq Ali over Tim Iqbal. A very tight margin, couple of hundred votes there with 153 polls. Getting close to getting all those 200 polls reporting there. Brampton North Caledon, Ruby Sahota. There you have it right now leading over Amandeep Judge by about 100 votes, roughly speaking, 98 polls of 175. Let's keep looking at some of the tight races in the GTA, which indicates the fact that we're going to be here for quite some time as we're trying to secure the final elected in these. But the Liberal Amandeep Sodhi over Taran Shahal in Brampton Centre. And one last riding where it's also close, Brampton East. Maninder Sidhu leading over Bob Dosanjh Singh, roughly by about under 1,000 votes, I'll say. But there you go. So some tight races in the Greater Toronto area. So we are going to keep tracking this. You have now Liberals leading 162, leading and elected 162 ridings, Conservatives at 149 leading and elected. Listen, we're now just past the midnight mark Eastern time, and I've been very happy to have the three of you join us as Susan and Cole, and I want to talk about how are you feeling before we switch over again? Just how you're feeling about tonight and what we're watching unfold. Farouk, I'll begin with you.
Surprised by how tight it ends up being, because I mean, what was projected was something more that the Liberals would have like 3-4 points ahead. The popular vote is really tight. The Conservatives are above 40%. So if you know, we're going to analyze the numbers tomorrow when we have them all, but at first sight, Mr. Poilievre kind of delivered what he wanted to deliver, but it was just a bit more to get where he wants. And internally, we know there was a lot of fighting internally, premiers and campaign directors and this and that. So I'm not sure how it's going to end up after today, because Poilievre kind of delivered, not the win, but he delivered a lot. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, interesting to see how it goes. And as you say that, the control room put up where the popular vote is. Look how close this is. Liberals 42.6%, Conservatives 41.9%. So a very, very close spread. And in terms of popular vote, you see both parties building on what was there before. Cole, how are you feeling about this evening?
Looking at that result, I think that's the highest share of the votes that Conservatives have gotten since the Mulroney years in the 80s. So in regular circumstances where the NDP is doing a lot better, like this would be a majority win for us. So Pierre Poilievre has delivered in terms of gaining more seats. We'll see how the math plays out afterwards. But just looking at the series of events that led to this election, we had Justin Trudeau's resignation, we had Trump and tariffs, we had the election of Mark Carney as Liberal leader. We were up 25 points in the polls. Then things flipped around and the Liberals were up by 12 points. Then throughout the duration of the election, things narrowed, and so much so that now we're in a very, very close race as things, come to the end here. So in the series of events and just the ever-shifting landscape politically that we watched this election take place in, it's not that surprising that we had just as interesting of a result as we had, the duration of the election in terms of the results.
While I have you, Cole, I do also want to, because Jenny Byrne, who has run the Conservative campaign, has been heavily criticized for the way she's run the campaign. In fact, some of the knives were already out for critical that the Conservatives are not on the way to government. Do you think this result helps vindicate her, or is she still under criticism from the party?
Well, this is still a loss. I mean, this is gains from where we were at before the election. So I think that there will be some conversations afterwards, but this is, further than Andrew Scheer got us, further than Aaron O'Toole got us. And, I saw the interview that Doug Ford did, and he was ribbing Tim Houston about having a leadership style video published online, and he was joking with Tim Houston saying, geez, you're not even waiting until the body's cold. And, that's funny from Doug Ford because he was very active during this election, sort of doing the exact same thing. So we'll see how this plays out afterwards, but this is significant gains in terms of where we were at from before the election. So that'll be a conversation that happens afterwards. There's going to be some new members of caucus there. We'll have to see how they feel and how, leadership review shakes out afterwards.
Polls, and everyone knows that. I think we could still end up with 12. I think the Liberals could still end up 12 seats short of a majority. So we could still have a fairly positive outcome. But I'm not, trying to say that this is a good night for us.
No, you're not going to sugarcoat it. You're a political scientist and recovering politician.
Recovering both. So, but I think there's, room to rebuild from this.
Sure.
And that Canadians will remember that Mark Carney is first and foremost a banker and an investment capitalist. And so when it comes time for the Parliament to try and deal with the trouble that Trump is going to cause for ordinary Canadians, there need to be those voices there to say, what are you actually going to do to make it better for ordinary people? And there'll still be at least 9 or 10, if not 12, New Democrats to raise those questions.
Do you think, though, that Mr. Singh should have, earlier in the campaign, we talked a lot about how Mr. Poilievre should have pivoted, and who knows if that's actually the truth given where the numbers are. But I wonder whether Mr. Singh should have pivoted earlier, whether he should have not suggested that there was some world in which he was going to be prime minister, and should have pushed more for the balance of power and protecting the things that you're talking about.
Well, it's a very short campaign we've been in, and so pivoting earlier means a week earlier, maybe?
Well, no, starting from that point, maybe.
Well, from the beginning, we had no idea what was going on because of Trump. We had no idea what kind of campaign it was going to be. We had no idea that this big shift would be, whether it would be lasting for Carney or whether it was a bump.
Yeah.
So for the first couple of weeks of the campaign, nobody really knew what was happening. And once we did know what was happening, he did shift very quickly.
Right. What happens if he loses a seat?
Well, it's always hard for leaders to lose their seat if they want to stay on as leader. And I'm ultra honest. I don't know whether he'll want to stay on as leader if he loses his seat. Yeah. It's going to be very difficult for him. I know it's been very hard on his family because of the threats that have been made to him. Yeah. And maybe he won't wish to continue. On the other hand, the advanced polls come through. He still wins his seat. We still another whole thing. So that's a story you can't write yet.
No, yeah, that's fair.
And we'll live to see tomorrow where we actually end up.
Okay. Thank you, Randall Garrison. Appreciate you being forthcoming there as well.
Donc, Karen, c'est très, très, très serré dans beaucoup de circonscriptions au pays. C'est quand on voit le résultat. Alors, j'ai ma collègue qui est avec Madame May, Anaïs.
Bonjour Patrice, oui, je me trouve à Saanich, Gulf Island avec Madame May. Première entrevue après sa réélection. Madame May, comment vous vous sentez?
Oh, je suis tellement heureuse parce que j'ai gagné le siège encore, mais je suis triste évidemment parce que mon collègue et co-chef, Jonathan Nord, n'a pas réussi autrement à cause de la décision de la commission des débats des chefs. Alors ça, avec cette décision, c'est clair actuellement en ce moment que c'est pas possible d'avoir un percé au Québec maintenant. Mais la prochaine fois peut-être parce que nous sommes en partie avec les politiques importantes pour tout le Canada, particulièrement au Québec. Mais ici, en Saint-Jean-de-Golfe, avec une opposition, avec le vote pour les conservateurs plus haut et aussi pour les libéraux plus haut, avec un campagne au niveau national comme elle était comme un course des chevals, comme année à année pour les conservateurs, comme il était une élection pour un premier ministre. Ce n'est pas notre système. Nous ne sommes pas les États-Unis avec 2 partis seulement. Et une élection pour un président. Nous ne sommes pas un pays comme ça. Nous ne sommes pas une démocratie comme ça. Et je suis vraiment fière de mon équipe, mes bénévoles, qui a fait un job incroyable pour protéger notre siège vert ici à l'île de Vancouver.
Et vous avez justement dit, si c'est un gouvernement minoritaire, vous allez vous assurer de garder le gouvernement imputable. Pouvez-vous nous en dire plus?
J'ai parlé déjà avec le Premier ministre, j'ai parlé avec Mark Carney. Après, les résultats sont clairs que je serai réélu. Et il est quelqu'un il est un ami de longue date. C'est important d'avoir une approche très forte comme opposition pour protéger notre climat, les droits humains, les choses contre le président des États-Unis, de reste des buts contre les politiques de quelqu'un comme lui, quelqu'un fou. Alors, je suis absolument prête de protéger les voix des personnes, les autochtones, les personnes ignorées par les grands partis de status quo, comme les libéraux. Maintenant, avec un premier ministre, avec un mandat, je suis prête de travailler ensemble, mais en même temps, de pousser pour les choses importantes que les libéraux à l'histoire bilingue ignorer.
Merci beaucoup, Madame May. Donc, c'était Madame May qui était réélue pour une 5e fois, un 5e mandat. Donc, depuis 2011, elle est représentante de cette circonscription.
Puis elle est heureuse, on la comprend, puis on la salue, Madame May. Donc, voilà les joies de la victoire. On va aller à Trois-Rivières. Louis, vous êtes avec la candidate libérale qui est devenue la nouvelle députée Caroline Desrochers, la nouvelle députée libérale de Trois-Rivières.
Vous faites bien d'insister là-dessus, Patrice, parce que c'est un moment historique pour Trois-Rivières qui n'a pas eu de député au pouvoir à Ottawa depuis 1993, la fin du règne Mulroney. Et l'autre candidat libéral, le dernier candidat libéral à avoir été élu dans Trois-Rivières, ça remonte à 1980, donc 45 ans. Mais là, il y en a une libérale qui sera députée à Ottawa, Caroline Desrochers. Bon, Madame Desrochers, dites-moi comment vous accueillez, comment vous comprenez cette élection qui est quand même assez décisive.
Écoutez, merci beaucoup. C'est vraiment un honneur, c'est une fierté. Je le vois comme un beau message. Je suis arrivée ici, on le sait, là, au jour 10 de la campagne, et vraiment là, je suis allée cogner à toutes les portes. J'ai rencontré tous les secteurs. Puis je pense que je me suis positionnée comme quelqu'un qui est à l'écoute, quelqu'un qui veut faire une différence, quelqu'un qui va être là pour les citoyens. Et puis je pense que les gens ont apprécié ce message-là, et c'est ça le résultat. Je pense qu'on voit ce soir.
Oui. Pardon, mais dans le contexte qu'on connaît, le fait que sur votre carte de visite, il y avait Affaires mondiales Canada, vous étiez affecté aux relations commerciales avec les États-Unis. Est-ce que ça a pu faire une différence aussi?
Oui, je pense qu'absolument. Puis je pense que c'est ça aussi qui est allé chercher l'appui. J'ai pu aller chercher l'appui de plusieurs secteurs de la société. J'ai quand même travaillé longtemps à Washington, mais pas à Washington, mais je suis allée souvent au Congrès américain pour défendre les intérêts des entreprises canadiennes, que ce soit dans l'industrie de l'aluminium, l'industrie du porc, que ce soit la gestion de l'offre. Alors, je pense que ça a résonné pour les gens ici. J'apporte un bagage, j'apporte une expérience qui est pertinente pour la région.
Dernière chose, hier, une électrice vous le demandait, allez-vous déménager dans la région parce que vous êtes de l'Outaouais?
Ben, je suis originaire de Montréal. Ça fait longtemps que je suis en Outaouais, mais oui, absolument. Il faut être ici. Il faut être. Il y a le travail à Ottawa, mais il y a le travail aussi. C'est important d'être près des électeurs pour bien les servir.
Merci, Madame la députée, qui est accompagnée d'ailleurs de sa mère. Alors voilà, Patrice. Et pour ce qui est d'Yves Lévesque, le conservateur, très, très déçu. Il a dit, j'ai offert ma disponibilité aux électeurs qui l'ont refusé. Maintenant, la porte reste ouverte pour lui un retour aux élections municipales, ou à Shawinigan ou à Trois-Rivières. Les deux lui seraient accessibles.
Il lâche pas. Mais c'est bien. Louis, merci beaucoup. Et on salue la nouvelle députée, on salue sa mère, et on salue tout le monde à Trois-Rivières. Merci de ce contexte. Alors, on va faire un certain nombre d'élus. Burlington, Karina Gould, qui est réélue donc dans Burlington.
Depuis 1984, Burlington vote du bon côté, vote pour le gouvernement. C'est la circonscription baromètre au pays.
Oui. Ah ouais. Alors, encore une fois, ça a été le cas ce soir, qui a fait, Mme Gould, une bonne campagne, même si elle est arrivée très loin derrière. Anita Anand, dans Oakville-Est, qui est réélue également. Donc, les pays d'en haut, Saint-Sauveur, Morin Heights, Tim Watchhorn, qui était jusqu'à aujourd'hui maire de Morin Heights, qui deviendra député de cette nouvelle circonscription. Voilà. Donc, on est à 160, 151. Je reprends, je fais du pouce sur ce que vous disiez, Jean-François, tout à l'heure. Je vais vous entendre chacun. À 160, si ça restait comme ça, le Bloc québécois, malgré les pertes, c'est quand même un scénario rêvé, parce que le NPD n'a pas la balance du pouvoir, même si vous ajoutez le vert. Là.
Oui. Et en fait, ça met Yves-François Blanchet dans une situation de pouvoir assez sans précédent. Parce que, donc, il devra doser le niveau de sa menace de faire tomber le gouvernement, ce qui est toujours le cas quand on a la balance du pouvoir. Alors évidemment, il y a le numéro de cellulaire de M. Carney.
Oui.
M. Carney, peut-être, j'espère qu'il lui a donné le vrai, parce que ça arrive, on nous donne des faux numéros.
Ah oui?
Je sais pas si ça vous est arrivé, Patrice. Non. Oui, bon. Pourtant, je vous avais donné mon faux numéro. Mais écoutez, quand est-ce qu'il va utiliser l'arme atomique? Est-ce que c'est si dans la négociation commerciale, il y a un largage de la gestion de l'offre? Est-ce que c'est parce que M. Carney s'entête à convaincre la Cour suprême d'empêcher le Québec d'utiliser la clause dérogatoire? Est-ce que c'est sur autre chose? Quelle sera la liste de ces conditions non négociables pour appuyer le discours du trône?
Avoir du pouvoir, ça vient avec la responsabilité.
Ça vient avec une énorme, comme disait l'oncle de Spider-Man. Oui, avec
énorme pouvoir, énorme responsabilité.
Et ça va être intéressant de voir comment il va jouer ça.
Mais il a clairement dit la semaine dernière que si il était le balance du pouvoir dans un gouvernement minoritaire, il ne le ferait pas tomber à court terme. Et moi, je pense qu'il y aurait intérêt à ne pas le faire. Je pense qu'au contraire, il pourrait, puis surtout avec M. Carney, je crois qu'il serait capable de négocier effectivement des choses pour le Québec et de, en tout cas, certainement convaincre M. Carney, par exemple, sur la gestion de l'offre ou sur d'autres choses. Alors moi, je pense qu'il est gagnant en ne faisant pas tomber le...
Je vous rajoute un élément, ce qui va mettre encore davantage en furie l'Alberta.
Oui, exactement. Be careful what you wish for. Comme disent mes collègues, Monsieur Blanchet demandait cette balance du pouvoir, mais je pense pas qu'il pensait vraiment, c'était juste pour avoir des députés. Là, il l'obtient probablement. Balance du pouvoir qu'il avait techniquement et en 2019 et en 2021, mais qui était complètement inefficace, ineffective, parce que les libéraux voulaient toujours être avec le NPD. Et là, je me demande, je parlais tout à l'heure de cette colère de l'Ouest face à un 4e mandat libéral trop à gauche, parce qu'on était accoquinés avec le NPD. Ben, je me demande quelle sera cette colère quand on va voir qu'on s'acoquine avec des séparatistes.
Énorme.
Exact. Il y a quelque chose à l'horizon, dans la fracture canadienne.
La fracture, c'était une des questions du débat, la fracture canadienne, parce que ça risque de réagir en Alberta. Parce que là, le NPD ne peut pas avoir la balance du pouvoir.
Si les chiffres ne bougent pas, c'est une pomme empoisonnée pour les libéraux. Parce que dès qu'ils vont faire une entente avec les bloquistes, les conservateurs, les néo-démocrates et même les Verts vont dire, vous voyez, ça lie avec le diable. Parce que dans le reste du Canada, les bloquistes ne devraient même pas être à Ottawa. Ils sont souverainistes, ne devraient pas être à la Chambre des communes. Et donc, ça va être compliqué pour les libéraux de se maintenir au pouvoir aussi longtemps qu'ils ont été capables de le faire avec le NPD, où il y avait une alliance là qui était naturelle. Sur beaucoup de politiques publiques, les libéraux et les bloquistes sont capables de s'entendre. C'est dans le symbole que ça va envoyer à chaque fois, si on s'entend, que là, ça va grincer des dents ailleurs. Pour Mark Carney, ça va être compliqué.
Oui, la vraie vie là-dedans. La vraie vie, là, c'est mettre au défi les partis d'opposition de traverser. Moi, j'étais dans un gouvernement minoritaire. On n'a pas fait d'alliance et on s'est entendu pour faire adopter nos projets de loi à la pièce, en consultant les gens. Les gens disaient oui, non, peut-être, négocier avec le 3e, le 6e, puis on a avancé comme ça. On n'était pas brillants, mais c'est comme ça qu'on l'a pris.
Vous étiez un nouveau gouvernement.
Mais
oui, c'est pareil, là, c'est un 4e mandat.
Oui, mais tu as un nouveau premier ministre.
Exactement.
Ça va dépendre de M. Carney. C'est lui qui va avoir...
Bien brave, Patrice.
Tout à fait.
Bien brave, le chef qui va faire trébucher M. Carney dans les premiers mois, nous faire retourner, dépenser 45 millions bien brave. Je vais entendre François. Tout est perdre 9 comtés.
C'est ça,
de l'enjeu. On n'en parle pas de ça. Et là, on est dans le compte à rebours ce soir. On est dans le compte à rebours pour l'élection québécoise de 2026. Ça compte.
François, sur cette question-là.
Michael touche un point auquel j'allais aborder. Arrêtez-moi ça, le Bloc gagne rien ce soir. Il perd 9 sièges sur 33. Il sauve les meubles, je suis d'accord. Mais après ça, on se transpose du côté de Mark Carney. Dans ce contexte-là, puis avec la difficulté en termes d'image par rapport à l'Ouest, il y a du travail à faire, Mark Carney. Là,
mais moi, je suis pas d'accord. François, c'est comme votre vague orange de 2011. Ah oui, vous aviez plein de députés, mais ça a donné absolument rien. On est en situation de majoritaire. Vous avez eu au NPD beaucoup plus de pouvoir avec votre vingtaine de sièges en situation minoritaire. Alors, des fois, on peut avoir moins de sièges, comme c'est le cas du Bloc, et gagner plus de pouvoir. C'est exactement ce qui se produit.
Je dis pas le contraire. Là, ce que je dis, c'est premièrement, là, le Bloc doit quand même réaliser qu'il a perdu 9 sièges.
Ah oui, bien sûr.
Alors, quand tu regardes en pourcentage,
il a perdu quantitativement, mais il a gagné qualitativement au Parlement. La différence.
Il a gagné plus de pouvoir. Même en ayant perdu 9 sièges, il va avoir plus de pouvoir. Sauf si le gouvernement décide de ne pas rien faire avec eux.
Il n'y a pas le choix. Il n'y a pas le choix. Il n'y a pas de majorité. Il y a le choix, Jean-François, je m'excuse.
Oui,
il y a le choix de caler le bluff. Il y a le choix de caler le bluff. Mais à l'approche de 2026, caler le bluff sur une question identitaire.
Ah ben là, ça va dépendre des...
Très bien, Louis. Est-ce que M. Carney, est-ce qu'on va l'entendre avant demain matin?
The first question, will he be in the House of Commons?
Yes.
Because I keep looking at those results in Carleton, and I'm waiting for them to find the stack of votes that puts him back on top.
Yeah.
There are still lots of polls in Carleton that have not been counted.
But he has not led that race yet.
Oh, he is significantly behind. It's not a close race at this point.
Yeah. Jason Kenney, we snuck Jason Kenney in there because I also heard Jamil Javani say your name as someone who is a conservative that he likes and points to as someone who is able to bring people together. What did you make of that? And there is obviously a problem here between Ford conservatives and Poilievre conservatives, and I don't know if it matters, but there's some deep animosity.
Well, there are certainly some personal differences, and to state the obvious, I have a firm grasp of the obvious. By which I mean, I think this is actually much more personal than it is ideological or factional.
Okay.
Every party has certain issue factions and personality factions. In this case, there seem to be 2 or 3 personalities that have really ramped up what I think is an unnecessary conflict that simply needs to get resolved.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know Jamil, for whom I have enormous regard. He's a incredibly talented a guy with an amazing story.
Yes.
He has a particular particular series of grievances. And I just, none of this should have been in the public domain. Let's put it that way.
No, for sure.
And I agree there should have been earlier efforts to engage get those relationships well settled much earlier. But it's not like there's a huge rift between most of the people going door to door for federal Conservative candidates in the last 5 weeks were going door to door for Doug Ford's candidates a few weeks before that. And you know what? The Ontario PC critique has been that Poilievre's team doesn't know how to win in Ontario. He's right now over 45% of the popular vote. Mr. Ford won 43% of the popular vote earlier this year. So the federal Conservative campaign is getting a better result, a larger total raw vote count, and a higher share of the popular vote.
Yeah.
That's nothing to sneeze at. And I think so a little bit of everybody has to put some water in their wine and put the best interests of the country first.
Yeah.
And maybe the common interests of partisan conservatives somewhere in there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Pierre Poilievre had called Doug Ford right from the get-go, the same way that Mark Carney did, he went and had breakfast with him, it probably would have helped. Whether it matters at this stage, I don't know.
Well, remember, it's not just Poilievre versus Ford. It's Poilievre versus Tim Houston in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
And it seemed like there were a series of candidates who looked like they could be perfectly acceptable and presentable candidates for the party who just didn't fit in with the Poilievre clique. Yeah. I mean, Mike DeJong in BC, why was he not allowed to be a candidate? So, you know, it's one thing, yeah, you can have a tent that's too broad and you lose all definition and you don't stand for anything, but you can have a tent that's too narrow and you just wind up defeating yourself.
Okay, I want to go to Conservative Party headquarters if we can. Maybe. Possibly.
Much, Anne-Marie. Lots of things to keep our eyes on.
That's just a look inside the room where, that's what it looks like when you have not won an election and you're waiting to see more. Let's go to Kate McKenna, who's, I imagine, been talking to people and getting a sense of how people are feeling in that room tonight. Kate, yes, they haven't won, but it does look like they have improved over what they got in the last vote. But tell me what people are telling you.
Well, what your guest just mentioned about the federal Conservatives doing better in Ontario than the provincial Conservatives did, that's something that the campaign has been going around talking about. That's something that is very much being discussed in this room. And yes, they are losing. They're aware that they're losing. However, they're happy. Well, I wouldn't say they're happy, but they're encouraged by their gains that they've made. They're encouraged by the amount of popular vote that they're getting. But of course, one thing that's hanging in this room is that Pierre Poilievre has not won his seat yet. In fact, he appears to be trailing in his seat. We are hearing that he is set to talk in a few minutes, but they did play the Jamil Jivani interview here. At the same time, obviously, it was on the CBC broadcast, and there was a lot of applause in the room for the things that he was saying. There was a lot of hollering and cheers for the people in this room who feel that Doug Ford's interventions in this campaign were not helpful, and they did not advance the Conservative cause in this very competitive election. So this ongoing rift appears to still be taking place within this party, and we'll be watching to see how it manifests over the next few days.
Okay, Kate McKenna, thank you so much for that. I'm going to now go to Ian Hannah-Mansing, who's got some results. Ian.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at Greater Vancouver and see how the NDP are doing there in terms of seat change, first of all. So we'll put that up on the screen, I hope, or if we don't, then I will, there we go. So this is vote change in Greater Vancouver, and you see the Liberals are up. The Conservatives are up. This is a pattern we've seen in other parts of the country as well, and you can see that this is at the expense of the NDP. Now, hours ago, when we looked at New Brunswick, this kind of vote change didn't really affect seats at all, but in Greater Vancouver, it is affecting seats. Let's take a look, first of all, at Port Moody, Coquitlam. This is more or less a three-way race in 2021. This time around, the NDP has plummeted from having won this riding. Bonnie Zerillo is the incumbent MP. You can see she's not only in third place, she's in a distant third place, and it's put the Conservatives in first. Arguably, the progressive vote, the left of center vote, has been split just enough between the NDP and the Liberals to allow the Conservatives to come up through the middle. And take a look at this. New Westminster, Burnaby, Millardville. Peter Julian, one of the mainstays of the NDP for so many years. He's been the MP here since 2004, and he is in third place. And again, easy even for me to do the math between the Liberals and the NDP. If someone had been able to consolidate those numbers on the center left, that would easily win. But in both of those cases, Rosemary, at this point, arguably, it has allowed, once again, the Conservatives to come up through the middle. Now, those aren't elected yet, but it is interesting, and it helps explain why the numbers look the way they do, particularly in BC at this point in the evening.
Okay, thank you for that, Ian. I want to go back to Jason Kenney, if I can. Just to ask you this question, shortly we're going to hear from Jagmeet Singh. That's the little box there at the bottom of your screen. So we're also going to bring in Randall Garrison in a moment so he can respond to some of what Mr. Singh is saying. But if Pierre Poilievre ends up with a bigger number of seats than the last vote, 149, 150, put aside whether he's going to win his riding, where he is still trailing, but put that aside. How does the Conservative Party view that? Does he have the ability to stay? What do you think is going to happen there? And then if you want to throw in the thing about the riding, I don't know whether this is real, but he hasn't led at all night.
Yeah, well, look, I can't comment on the riding. Sure. I will just say that I think Mr. Poilievre, if he decides to stay as leader and leader of the opposition, he will have overwhelming support to do so. I don't see any faction or group within the party egging for a new leadership. I think the party realizes changing leaders every 3 or 4 years is counterproductive. And I think, on the merits here, he right now, 42% of the popular vote nationally. The last time the Conservatives achieved that was under Brian Mulroney 37 years ago in 1988. Growth in new cohorts of supporters in a broader Conservative coalition that includes younger voters than typical, apparently doing very well in communities of new Canadians. And one of the most interesting things, I talked earlier about the sort of blue-collar swing that we seem to be observing towards Conservatives. Conservatives are winning in Windsor, Tecumseh, Windsor West, one of the Sudbury seats. We almost won Hamilton. We're competitive in Hamilton Centre. I've never seen that. These are long-time traditional NDP. So the NDP swing was I know it's fashionable around here to refer to the progressive bloc. A lot of traditional NDP voters wouldn't regard themselves as on the left. They're for the little guy. Sure. And Pierre Poilievre has been fighting for the little guy. He's broadened the Conservative coalition in that way, and picked up apparently at least 30 seats. So, and finally, he has been, in my judgment, the most effective opposition leader in our lifetime. Some might say too effective. Such an effective opposition leader that he became typecast as in that role.
And he also got rid of the very things that were going to help him, Justin Trudeau and a carbon tax. I mean, that was his own success brought that to him as well.
More than that, look, I mean, I heard my friend Arif here dismissively referring to Mr. Poilievre's 3-word slogans. Look, he created the issue matrix that has been dominating Canadian politics for the past 2 years around affordability, the cost of living, housing, immigration, much of it represented, yes, by the carbon tax. He's also taken some principled and courageous positions. I think he took on the Liberals on their class warfare baiting on the capital gains tax increase. I believe he's the only leader who in French and English pointedly opposed the Quebec Bill 21 law against religious symbols in Quebec. Did somebody else?
Don't go there. No. He didn't. He actually has fudged whether he would intervene in the Supreme Court on it. So
I heard his clear opposition to it. So my point.
He says he's opposed to it, but he doesn't say what he would do about it.
I think he ran a substantive campaign. He set up the issue set. He helped to defenestrate Justin Trudeau. and he's got the best result for a conservative leader since 1988.
Okay, and I take all those points, and they're excellent points, and I'm going to let Jagmeet Singh speak in a moment, except that wasn't the bar. The bar was 25 points ahead, and you were going to form government. And you're telling me no one in the party is going to be angry with him?
Oh, there's going to be a desire for sure for a retrospective. And I think any leader after this circumstance should show some humility, should take a step back. And I think the important thing is, does a leader have the ability to learn and to grow? I think we've seen him modify his tone, his approach, his issue focus over the past several months. I think that demonstrates such an ability. He'll have to demonstrate that to the party, but I don't see anybody gunning for his job.
Yeah, I'm not saying his leadership's in any trouble, but he needs to reflect on why he's not going to be prime minister tomorrow, because a large part of it was the leadership. The leader was the biggest liability for the party. The strategy that the party pursued, at least for the first part of the campaign, was clearly wrong. He bears responsibility for that. So he should clearly have to answer some questions to the party.
It's also very dangerous to take for granted for both the Liberals and the Conservatives that the NDP weakness in this election is something that will be permanent. On the contrary, I don't know what Mr. Singh is going to say, but at this point, it's not really hard to imagine that it could be stronger with a stronger leader than it has been over the past 3 elections.
Althea?
Well, the ridings that you mentioned are three-way races, that they're not, that the Conservatives got in through the middle because of the progressive vote splitting. But I get your point, especially in the 905, where I think Pierre Poilievre did a really good job, especially on the crime stuff. I think the reason that he's going to have trouble, whether or not he wants to stay, is the interview that we just saw with Jamil Javani. That aggressive tone really does not sit well with a significant chunk of the caucus that has been reelected. And we will find out as soon as the first caucus meeting whether or not they decide to approve the Reform Acts, and the caucus gives itself the power to decide whether or not Pierre Poilievre stays. And I think that will be a way for them to negotiate, because I think there are things that they would like. One MP called it the end of the reign of terror. Basically, they want Jenny Byrne gone, and if the result is low enough, they will set conditions to say, you want to stay, well, these are the changes we want to see.
Okay, quickly, Mr. Kenney, because I'm going to go to Mr. Singh.
Yeah, I would say, look, I think there are legitimate questions around tone.
Yeah.
And I think, amongst other things, if he had made an effort to more clearly position to auditioning for the role of prime minister rather than opposition leader late last year, it could have been marginally helpful. I don't think it would have changed the fundamental structure of this election in the way things unfolded.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason Kenney. Let's go to Jagmeet Singh. He's there in his riding in British Columbia. I should tell you that right now, as things stand, Mr. Singh is well behind in his own riding. He is in third with 4,000 votes. The other two far ahead. So things not looking good for him in his own riding tonight. And as we've shown you there, the NDP not even official party status. Let's listen in live.
Thank you. Thank you. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. That was very nice, very sweet of you all. Thank you so much. You're gonna get me all choked up here, guys. Got to keep it together here, folks. Thank you very much. The love is amazing. I appreciate y'all. Big thank you to Suzanne. She's been with us from the beginning. Huge thank you. Appreciate her so much. Thank you. And all of you in this room, you guys poured your heart into this. Thank you so much for everything you've done. You're amazing. We love you all. Thank you. I know in election parties, night parties across the country, people are gathered, and I want to thank them all for all their hard work. They're amazing people gathered together across the country. I want to take a moment to congratulate Prime Minister Carney on his victory. He has an important job to do to represent all Canadians. and to protect our country and its sovereignty from the threats of Donald Trump. Tonight and every night, all of us here, we're on Team Canada. We want Canada to thrive, and we're going to continue to fight for Canada. I want to congratulate all the other leaders on a hard-fought campaign. It's been the honor of my life to represent the people of Burnaby Central. Tonight they chose, thank you. Tonight they chose a new member of parliament, and I wish them well as they continue to work hard for this community. Obviously, I know this night is a disappointing night for New Democrats. We had really good candidates that lost tonight. I know how hard you worked. I spent time with you. You're amazing. I'm so sorry you're not going to be able to represent your communities. I know you're going to continue to fight for them. I know on how many doors you knocked, how many family dinners you missed, how many nights your kids went to bed without you there to tuck them in. I know it was a tough sacrifice, and I just want to thank, and we can give a round of applause to every single candidate that ran for us. Thank all those incredible candidates and their incredible teams, because no candidate can do it without a team. The volunteers, the staff, thank you to all those candidates and their incredible staffs. One more time. Choosing to commit your life to politics obviously comes with some sacrifice, but we choose this life because of the chance to change the country we love for the better. We may lose sometimes, and those losses hurt, it's tough. But we are only defeated if we stop fighting. We're only defeated when we believe that those that tell us that we can never dream of a better Canada, a fairer Canada, a more compassionate Canada. I have met New Democrats from coast to coast to coast who will never back down, even when they're told that there's no room for them at the table. We make room for everyone because we believe that there is enough wealth in Canada for all of us to live the life that we deserve. Honestly, I got to avoid making eye contact with certain people because then it's going to get too emotional up here. So I just made the mistake of doing that, so I'm going to look away now. You know who you are. Don't look at me again. Almost 8 years ago, I was elected the leader of this incredible party, this incredible movement. I've worked really hard to be worthy of this trust, to live up to the legacy of our movement. Hold on a second, guys. Thank you. One more sec. Tonight, I've been informed a party leader that I'll be stepping down as party leader as soon as an interim leader can be appointed. Now, I could not have done this incredible job without, here's a point, give me a second to break down a bit. I couldn't have done it without the incredible support of my wife. Could have kidded. She has been my rock. She's been my foundation. For the past couple of years, I've been regretting that I didn't thank her on the night of the last election. So this is my opportunity to make up for it. She has literally been my rock. I couldn't have done this without her. She's backed me up and supported me. She has made so many sacrifices. She convinced me that she's enjoyed them all, but I don't know. But she's amazing. I'm just so thankful. Thanks for being on this journey. I'm going to give you a hug. Hold on.
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service. This is the primary audio
people who voted for other parties. And so, my message tonight, for the single mother working 2 jobs but still has an empty fridge and an empty bank account, for the young people who despair at never being able to afford a home, for the seniors on fixed incomes whose savings are eroded by inflation and no longer feel safe in their local neighborhood parks, for those who are now living in fear and terror because of crime, for those worried about losing their jobs because of unacceptable tariffs from the United States of America, for all of those who feel left behind and forgotten, my message is one of hope. Change will take time, but we will fight for that change, and we will deliver that change, and we will never give up on fighting for the great Canadian promise that anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, that hard work gets you a great life in a beautiful house on a safe street protected by our brave troops under our proud flag. Canada first, Canada always. Let's bring it home. Thank you very much, Canada. Merci beaucoup, Canada.
Yeah, we fight for what's right. We're wild and we're free from the mountains above us. And all you can see is more than just a place where freedom roams. It's our home. There's something tender about it. There's something hidden about it. There's something all generations can have and can hold. We break down the walls and break out of the mold. Yeah, we fight for what's right. We're wild and we're free from the mountains above us. And all you can see is more than just a place where freedom roams. It's our about it. There's something brand new about it. Yeah, you'll leave and you'll miss it, then come back and kiss it. You'll try.
Easy. Love.
He ran a substantive campaign. He set up the issue set. He helped to defend it.
En tant que parti, on a
in Ontario.
Well, I think with a 60-vote lead.
Now, sacrifice that the NDP.
At one of your rallies, a lady.
Could the story.
Whether it matters at this stage.
Sont capables de s'entendre.
Left, therefore, I think it would.
Because then it's
ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada?
There will always be a Canada.
All right. Elbows up.
Elbows up. C'est une question qui ont les valeurs de tous les Canadiens, les valeurs de compassion, les valeurs de la communauté, les valeurs de la miséricorde. Fundamentally, it's about what it means to be Canadian. And that's what's at stake. Are we coming together, or is it everyone for themselves? I prefer that we come together to build a better country.
Sunglasses at night so I can keep track of the visions in my eyes. While she's deceiving me, it cuts my security. Has she got control of me? I turn to her and say, don't push the blame on the guy and shades of no. Don't mess around with the guy and shades of no. I can't believe it, she got mad with the guy and shades of no. I wear my sunglasses at night so I can forget my name while you collect your pay. And I wear my sunglasses at night so I can see the light that's right before my eyes. Wow, she's deceiving me. She cuts my security. She got control of me. I turn to her and say, don't put the blame on the guy in shades of no. side. They've witnessed the times you've gone astray. And whose fault now you're thinking, there's nothing to prove.
Veuillez accueillir, please welcome to the stage, Diana Carney.
Ici la terre est sans moi, ici la petite noire. Raconte-moi qu'on puisse trembler ensemble. Ici le jour
Good evening, Canada. Bonsoir, Canada, et merci pour votre vote. I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for supporting your Liberal candidates. And thank you for choosing my husband's vision of a positive, unified, and above all, a strong country. Over the past few weeks, Mark and I have had the enormous privilege of meeting so many people across this great country. Everywhere we've visited, we've been energized by the passion, the commitment, and the kindness and belief that we have encountered, not to mention the beauty and diversity of this amazing country. As we've traced a path from winter into spring, through all this, I've watched my husband listen and learn. I've watched him inspire confidence and take on new skills. But most of all, I've seen him remain true to what he's always been. Consistent, compassionate, loyal, and driven by an exceptionally strong set of values. thoughtful, respectful, and honest. And I think and hope that you now have come to appreciate that alongside his capacity for dealing with the most serious of matters, he has a great mind for trivia, a wicked sense of humor, and a wonderful smile. He's been that way since our very first date, back when we were young grad students, when we went to that dinner, and he said to me, he stopped the conversation, and he said to me, I want you to know I'm committed to move back to Canada and to work in the public service. So here we are. As his partner, I could not be more proud of him. And as a Canadian, I'm so thankful that the man I met more than 30 years ago has held tight to that strong commitment to service. I'm lucky to have him. We're lucky to have him now more than ever. Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce my husband, the Prime Minister who will make Canada strong, and Canada for.
Nepean. That is the spirit of Nepean behind me right there. Thank you. Bonsoir tout le monde. Bonsoir. Oh, quel bonsoir. C'est un bon bonsoir. I have a question. Who's ready? Who's ready? Who's ready to stand up for Canada with me? And who's ready? Who's ready to build Canada strong? Okay. Avant de commencer, je voudrais féliciter les autres chefs de parti de leur campagne et de tout le travail qu'ils ont fait. Je les remercie pour leur service envers le Canada, maintenant et dans le futur. I want to thank the leaders of the other parties. I want to salute the contribution of Jagmeet Singh. I noticed his remarks. Leading on progressive values. Elizabeth May, who will be returning to Parliament. Yves-François Blanchet. And I want to congratulate Pierre Poilievre on a hard-fought, fair, good campaign, his commitment to the country that we both love. They all have many, many more contributions to our land. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana, for your work on this campaign. Thank you, Diana, for the commitment and compassion you bring to everything that you do. Tonight simply would not have been possible without you and without the support of our 4 children who inspire me to service every single day. I also want to salute the women and men who put their name on the ballot from all parties. Thank you for standing up to serve our country at this critical time. And for those who were elected, particularly those Liberals who were elected, I am looking forward to working together to deliver for Canadians. This says, Bruce. And Bruce, yes, Bruce Vanjoy. I'm looking forward to working with Bruce Vanjoy. Fantastic. He will be a great MP. We're going to have fun tonight. Yes, we're going to have fun. Bien sûr, je tiens à remercier les milliers de bénévoles ici ce soir et à travers le pays qui ont donné de leur temps pour cogner aux portes, pour faire des appels, pour échanger avec leurs voisins et les membres de leur communauté, pour nous donner un gouvernement fort. Ouais, c'est ça. You know, I chose to enter politics because I felt we needed big changes in this country. But big changes guided by strong Canadian values. Values that I learned at the dinner table from my parents, Bob and Verley, and from my siblings. I appreciate this more in retrospect from my siblings. My siblings, Brenda, Sean, and Brian. Values that I learned on the ice from my coaches. Values that have been reinforced as I've met with Canadians across this great country. And those include three values that I want to highlight this evening. Humility. It's Canada after all. Ambition. It's Canada after all. And unity. It's Canada. I love you. Right back. Right back. These are good values. These are Canadian values. Values that I will do my best. I'm just getting worked up here. These are values that I will do my best to uphold every day as your Prime Minister. You betcha. Okay, well, you have to judge after this next section because I am going to begin with the value of humility and by admitting that I have much to be humble about. It's true. Over my long, that's not an applause line, it's just a statement of fact. Over my long career, I have made many mistakes, and I will make more. But I commit to admitting them openly, to correcting them quickly, and always learning from them. You know, humility underscores the importance of governing as a team in cabinet and in caucus, and working constructively with all parties across Parliament. Of working in partnership with the provinces and the territories, and with Indigenous peoples. And at this time, it underscores the value of bringing together labor, business, civil society, to advance the nation-building investments we need to transform our economy. Humility is also about recognizing that one of the responsibilities of government is to prepare for the worst, not hope for the best. As I've been warning for months, America wants our land, our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. That will never ever happen. But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed. There is also, for me, as I stand before you this evening, humility in recognizing that, well, many have chosen to place your trust in me, trust in the Liberal Party. Millions of our fellow citizens preferred a different outcome. And my message to every Canadian is this: no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home. You know, during this short campaign, I went to Saskatchewan and Alberta a couple of times, even though, you know, we're Liberals. It's tough. It's tough out there. I grew up there. But I went because I intend to govern for all Canadians. And au cours de cette campagne, plusieurs Québécois et Québécoises m'ont ouvert leurs portes, m'ont accordé leur confiance. J'en suis profondément touché et je vous en remercie. La langue française, la culture québécoise, elles sont au cœur de l'identité canadienne. Elles définissent le pays que j'aime tant. Et je vais les défendre sans relâche. Avec la forte équipe de députés québécois que vous venez d'envoyer à Ottawa, nous allons faire en sorte que le Québec continue de prospérer au sein de Canada fort. Et que vous soyez un travailleur des sables bitumineux à Fort Mac, une infirmière de Joliette ou un comptable de Toronto. Il y a plusieurs comptables à Toronto. Mon gouvernement va travailler pour vous tous. So, as we come here after this most consequential election, let's put an end to the division and anger of the past. We are all Canadian, and my government will work for and with everyone. I began with humility, but Canadians are ambitious. And now, more than ever, it is a time for ambition. It is a time to be bold, to meet this crisis with overwhelming positive force of a united Canada. Because we are going to build, baby, build. Exactly. Throughout, we're building now. We've gotten over that bit. Throughout our history, there have been turning points. Throughout our history, there have been turning points when the world's fortunes were in the balance. That was the case at the start of the Second World War, just as it was at the end of the Cold War. And each time, Canada chose to step up, to assert ourselves as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation, to lead the path of democracy and freedom, and, because we are Canadian, to do so with compassion and generosity. We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over. These are tragedies, but it's also our new reality. We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But you're going to take us forward.
We have to look out for ourselves. And above all, we have to take care of each other. When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations. And it will be with our full knowledge that we have many, many other options than the United States to build prosperity for all Canadians. Nous allons renforcer nos relations avec des partenaires fiables en Europe, en Asie et ailleurs. Et si les États-Unis ne veulent plus jouer un rôle de premier plan dans l'économie mondiale, le Canada le fera. We will lead, not the Americans. Nous sommes maîtres chez nous. Nous allons bâtir des millions de logements, une superpuissance énergétique, de bonnes carrières dans les emplois spécialisés et une seule économie canadienne pas 13. We will chart a new path forward. Because this is Canada, and we decide what happens here. We will need to think big and act bigger. Your phone's ringing. Sorry, just okay. All right. Just hang on. It's okay? It might be important. We will need to do things previously thought impossible at speeds we haven't seen in generations. It's time to build twice as many homes every year with an entirely new housing industry using Canadian technology, Canadian skilled workers, Canadian lumber. It's time to build new trade and energy corridors, working in partnership with the provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples. It's time to build hundreds of thousands of not just good jobs, but good careers in the skilled trades. It's time to build Canada into an energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy. And it's time to build an industrial strategy that makes Canada more competitive while fighting climate change. We will build one Canadian economy, not 13, with a government committed to free trade in Canada by Canada Day. The point is that we can give ourselves far more than the Americans can ever take away. But even given that, I want to be clear. The coming days and months will be challenging, and they will call for some sacrifices. But we will share those sacrifices by supporting our workers and our businesses. Les défis devant nous sont intimidants, et c'est normal. Les grands changements, comme ceux que nous vivons, sont toujours inquiétants. Nous avons beaucoup de chemin à faire, mais j'ai confiance. J'ai confiance en vous. J'ai confiance au Canada. Because Canada is more than a nation. We are and we always will be a confederation, a sacred set of ideas and ideals built on practical foundations. That we know we're not always perfect, but we always strive to be good. We do things because they're right, not because they're easy. That we see kindness as a virtue, not as a weakness. Most importantly, we know that our strength lies in our resolve to work together as a country. It relies on our unity. You know, on the second day of this campaign, I went to Gander, where on 9/11, they welcomed thousands of passengers into their homes without question or hesitation. I sat down with two of the many heroes of the time, Diane Davis and Beulah Cooper. And during our conversation, they showed me a thank you card that they'd received from a young girl called Ellie, who wrote, "Your kindness motivates me to use my kindness." That touching phrase captures what Canadians instinctively know, that virtue is like a muscle that grows with its exercise. We become just by doing just acts, brave by doing brave acts. When we are kind, kindness grows. When we seek unity, unity grows. When we are Canadian, Canada grows. And united over our history, we have done hard, seemingly impossible things. United, we have built one nation in harsh conditions despite a sometimes hostile neighbor. Yes, they have form on this, the Americans. United, we have confronted our own past with Indigenous peoples. Unis, nous avons bâti un pays qui rassemble des langues, des cultures et des croyances différentes. Unis, nous avons bâti des institutions culturelles essentielles comme CBC Radio-Canada. United, we have created universal public health care. And now, in the face of this crisis, united, we are buying Canadian. We are exploring everything this country has to offer. We are supporting our friends and neighbors in the crosshairs of President Trump through a crisis that we did not create. United, we will win this trade war and build the strongest economy in the G7, an economy that works for everyone. Au cours des derniers mois, les Canadiens et Canadiennes ont fait leur part, se sont rassemblés pour défendre notre pays et notre façon d'être. Je promets que, lorsque nous sommes menacés, nous allons nous battre. We will fight back with everything we have to get the best deal for Canada. We will protect our workers and businesses, and above all, we will build an independent future for our great country. A future that makes the greatest country on the earth even better. Together, we will build a Canada worthy of our values. We will build Canada strong, Canada free, Canada forever. Vive le Canada. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Dear guests, we know it's been a long night. We will ask for another 10 minutes of your patience while we reset the stage for our very special musical guest. Chers invités, nous savons que la soirée a été longue. Nous vous demandons de patienter 10 minutes pendant que nous préparons la scène pour nos invités spéciaux. À tout de suite.
妈妈是我的心肝宝贝，她值得最好的。想帮助睡眠、促进排便，我为妈妈选太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌。知道妈妈总舍不得买给自己，我来买。希望妈妈睡得香，假巴黎。
This is the primary audio circuit for the Reuters live service.
宠爱妈咪超值专区，享各项健康好礼最高3重送，满5000加送520元购物金。透过中天新闻网 App 下单或输入 CTI 推荐码，每单再减50元哦。